2. Two, what's up? Let's get this rolling. Barry, I'm sorry to hear you got fired. What's going on with that? What happened? They said this man is too handsome. This man is too handsome. He's making everyone feel inadequate. Get him out of here. They found out he was part of a cult and said, "No way, Jose." Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sorry to hear that, Barry. That sucks. Better things ahead. Good way of looking at it. I was so tired yesterday. Like I was so exhausted by the time the stream was finished. And I went and picked up my kid from school. Like we hung out, we had some dinner at home. I brought him to his swimming lesson. And by the time I was just so tired by the time the swimming lesson was finished. And I went and picked this up at the dépanneur. So I would have it for today. And it was so tempting last night. I got this last night around, 7:30 or so. And it was so tempting. I so wanted to drink it last night. I felt like that Lionel Hutz moment in The Simpsons. The brownest of brown liqueurs. Or bourbon. The brownest of brown liquors. So tempting. What's that? You want me to drink you? But I'm in the middle of a trial. That's what I felt like last night. I really wanted to drink it, so it's quite satisfying now. Hello, Dick Penderin. What's up? You go one day without a monster and the can starts talking to you like the Green Goblin mask. Absolutely. It really does. I was just watching the whole Road to WrestleMania press conference. Is the wrestling faction of the chat in here yet? Should we talk about this? It was pretty good.
You can count on me. You're gonna have.
It seems like they have recalibrated.
To talk you through all this.
2 years of friendship.
Crystal, thanks so much. 24 months of Tier 1. You're right. That's 2 entire years. So thank you very much for the 24 months of Tier 1 and for all the support. And congratulations to you for the brand new Shimmering Golden 2-year sub badge. It's so funny, people that are going to pretend that this was their plan the whole time and not pivot due to backlash. I don't know. I'm kind of two minds about this, Jay. Maybe they thought they could just parachute The Rock into the main event, like with Cody and the whole finished story thing and the Royal Rumble and all that. Maybe they really thought that. Either way, though, too, I think it was easy to predict. Well, it doesn't really matter at this point, honestly. I think it was easy to predict as soon as that backlash started that they would probably course correct. And it feels like they have. I like how the Rock is leaning into the heel stuff. there's zero chance The Rock would agree to a storyline that makes him look that bad. I would say yes, but I think there's a possibility that someone like The Rock might have thought that he just has the star power and the legacy to just show up and people would like it. He may just be that arrogant that he thought people were going to be super into it. I don't think it's totally out of the question. Either way, though, it was clear that they were going to course correct, and it seems like they have. Interested to see what's going to happen. I don't know if anyone watched that press conference. Well, it's a little bit bad for Seth Rollins. He was kind of like, he got to open up the whole thing, and then he just got relegated to just standing around while Roman and The Rock and then Cody came out, and they're all talking about like he's the B-list, B-team and stuff, and he just had to stand there in his ridiculous suit and just like not respond. I felt kind of bad for him. It seems like he's probably involved in some of these plans. I liked how they brought it into kind of like a what is real here and what's not territory, even though I do think the whole thing was planned to go like that. I liked when Cody came out and then Triple H and Adam Pearce and Nick Aldis all kind of came out like it was unplanned. There was a big backstage thing with The Rock freaking out and getting pissed off. I like that. That's wrestling, baby. I love that. That's when it's at its best. And you're reminded how, like, when The Rock is like engaged, like he seems to be now, he's still just one of the best to ever do it. And you can tell that he's engaged on a number of levels right now. Like he's really turning it up. They're doing something. They're cooking something, Jay. I don't know. I'm pretty interested to see what it is. Anyway, we don't need to get too much into it. It doesn't seem like wrestling chat is here. Sometimes we got wrestling chat, and sometimes we got just like me and one person, in this case, Jay, talking about something that everyone else that is not connected to this world has just gone, yeah. What is this? What are we talking about here? Kira V is completely tuned out. Completely tuned out. I'm interested to see where it goes. I personally like their tights and short shorts. I agree. I couldn't agree more. Mistress of Insanity, do you finish your exam?
This is some guy, Rob Russo, some leftist
Is it
based
over?
in Canada. I was turned on to this sick individual, and I found this.
Lucid, hello. Lucid, thank you for the raid. I appreciate it. How is the Lucid Fox stream today? It starts in 10 minutes. Oh no. Okay, so everyone just showed up. Chat, whoever just showed up, can we please all collectively say, Mistress of Insanity, good luck on your exam. Our friend Mistress of Insanity has a big exam coming up, and she's gonna kill it. She's gonna crush it. She's gonna destroy, dominate. I hope the Lucid Fox stream was good. Thanks again, Lucid, for the raid. I'm going to be in the Lucid Fox household. I'm going to be literally physically in the Lucid Fox household in 2 weeks' time. It's going to be a real life raid. There's a real life Rob raid happening at the Lucid Fox household. In the Fox's lair. Or den, yeah, whatever. We can workshop that. We can workshop what we want to call it. The lucid fucks hole. No, I don't think we're going to call it that. I think we need to continue workshopping that. Let's continue workshopping that. I don't think that's quite finished. I don't think that's quite done. Yeah, we nailed it with lucid foxhole, and now it's going too far. And even then, it's almost too far. Now that I'm thinking about the implications of that. Now that I'm thinking about what that means. Let's just drop it. Okay? Let's just drop it. We should watch the Tucker Putin interview in full. I want to hear the entire history of Russia. I don't really feel the need to watch the entire thing. I think there's segments of it that I might want to check out. I watched some parts of it. I was funny when I just Freudian slipped Putin and Lucid Fox. That's interesting. When Putin was ribbing Tucker Carlson over being in the CIA, that was funny. You did have to hand it to him on that one. Sometimes you do have to hand it to him, and that was one of those cases. And there's a couple things too. It's like, I don't like Tucker Carlson. You know, I think he is probably a CIA asset, actually. Like, not to Fed jacket Tucker Carlson, but I actually do think that's a possibility. You know, I think he sucks up a lot of energy from the like libertarian anti-war people by taking this kind of nominally pro-Russian stance, but really wants to pivot towards China. He wants to pivot towards China. He wants America to have an alliance with Russia to pivot towards China, which Putin was almost like laughing at. At the same time, I don't agree with this thing with like this idea, like all the criticism that he got just for going there, just for like going to Russia, just for talking to Putin. I really do hate this climate where it's just like, what? You can't do that. Don't go to Russia. Don't talk to the president of Russia. Don't talk to Russian people. Dmitry Lascaris got that as well, right? Dmitry Lascaris just went to Crimea and like went to this region and talked to people. Oh, my goodness. How scary. He went over there to actually talk to people about what's been going on there. And there's still people that like these like bizarre like red-brown alliance fanaticists that come after me because I spoke to Dmitry Lascaris, and that makes me one of the assets as well, one of the red-brown alliances, because Dmitry Lascaris just went to Crimea and was like, hey, how's it going? Like, what's going on here? Do you want to be part of Russia? Do you want to be part of Ukraine? Oh, it seems like most people here that I'm talking to want to be part of Russia, actually. So yeah, I don't agree with this idea that like, oh no, you can't go there. Don't ever give the perspective. Don't ever give the Russian perspective on anything. Not on Ukraine, not on Crimea, not on anything. You're not allowed. I don't agree with that. But I think we can acknowledge that while also not giving credit to Tucker Carlson, who's a fucking loser. They're not even people. Yeah, well, that's it. How dare you get any other perspective than the one we manufactured for you? And, you know, I think it's important to get that perspective about Ukraine out there. Like I said, Tucker's not doing it for, like, ideological reasons. It's not because he's anti-war. But I do think it's important for people to be exposed to that information about the role that the United States and Canada played in provoking that, which, as we know, is not some kind of Putin conspiracy theory. That's just factual information. You know, Tucker's trying to present that kind of information to people as a way to, like, generate some kind of credibility as some kind of, like, anti-empire voice, which obviously is not true. I mean, and you would have to be genuinely stupid to believe that he was kind of anti-empire in any way. Like I said, he's trying to he's trying to promote that narrative to his audience so that they can be primed to like go along with this kind of like the conservative faction that wants to form an alliance with Russia and pivot towards China. That's this reason that he's doing that. From what I heard in the interview, Putin has a pretty clear-eyed picture of the players and the stakes, more so than Brandon. Well, I mean, he's certainly more like lucid. We got the lucid raid, but I think that's important to point out. Love the guy or hate the guy, he is able to go out there and like coherently talk about things for like a significant period of time, and talk about basic facts of history and that kind of stuff. I would like to see either Biden or Trump do that. Alcoholic corn. If Tucker says the sun's going to rise tomorrow, it doesn't mean it won't, but he's probably telling you because he wants war with China. Exactly. I agree. You don't have to hand it to Tucker Carlson. I think he's like a kind of crypto-fascist demagogue. As much as he gets some kind of unearned credit for being like conservative populace or whatever, I mean, talking about like the forgotten man in America at the same time, scapegoating the homeless, scapegoating people that are going through addiction, scapegoating the poor. He's not some kind of common man whisperer. Like, it's just absurd to suggest that he is. Russia's playing bad cop while China's playing good cop. Putin and Xi are buddies, and I think there's some pretty obvious agreements between the two. In this way, he's against empire in the sense that he and others seek a multipolar world. But that's what I mean. Like, you can talk about Russia in that context, but not about Tucker Carlson. And yeah, I think the ship has sailed. Like, I don't think there's, as much as there might be some appetite on the part of this like faction of the conservative movement to peel off Russia and turn Russia into an ally again against China, I think that ship has sailed. That ship has sailed. Like, they seem to have a pretty strong alliance now, that they're just building these cultural bonds and economic bonds now. And even people like Putin in that interview, I mean, we can watch some of the clips, but Putin in that interview as well talked about, and this is something we've talked about plenty, but and he talked about the Hunka incident as well. That was fucking hilarious. But he talked about how like we wanted to be part of the club. We were showing you that we were on board. We were just as chauvinistic and reactionary as you. And I saw people using that as some kind of gotcha. Oh, these like tankies are going to be so embarrassed when he's saying that. It's like, why? That's what we've been saying. That's been the absurd part of the U.S. foreign policy as it pertains to Russia, and the whole obsession with Russia and Ukraine and all this stuff, is that they wanted to be part of the team. They wanted to be part of the club. And America was like, no, even though you've given up on your whole economic system, even though you've completely renounced socialism, even though you've opened yourself up to Western investment, you've decimated the whole country, still no, you're still not part of the club. And that's what led to now this like multi-decade long project of them saying like, all right, fine, and then forming this like bulwark against Western hegemony. Like, that, it didn't have to be like that. Yeah, he even called Russia a bourgeois state. So that's the thing. People were framing that as some kind of gotcha. Like, it's not a gotcha. We've been talking about this. We've been talking about this for 2 years now. Yeah, he was like, we're bougie now. We're bourgeois now. Are you happy? Let us into your special club. And America's just like, no. I think they mean the Pet Sox will be embarrassed. Well, it may be too, but it seems, and yeah, like, but like, does anyone, no one thinks that like Russia's communist. Like, no one thinks that they're still socialist. It's only liberals that seem to think that. I don't really like these patriotic socialist types, but I think That's always been like, that's not like a hidden thing. That Russia is capitalist and like was trying to be part of that system. Liberal Americans think Russia is communist and Republican Americans think Biden is communist. Good. American hubris will be its downfall. Well, dollar bill, I mean, that's one thing we've talked about a lot. Like, the United States had all this sewn up, you know? Like, Kissinger, obviously one of the modern history's biggest monsters, but Kissinger had won. Like, they split, like, there was the Sino-Soviet split. Eventually, they destroyed Russian socialism. They had it made. They had it won. All they had to do at that point was just let Russia into the club, and they probably would have, maybe it would have been the end of history. But through their own arrogance and their own belligerence, they've taken these two nations that hated each other after the Sino-Soviet split, and you've put them back together. You've put them back in this unshakable alliance. No, good job. Good job. You did a really great job, guys. Fantastic. Right before February 2022, Russia and China announced a bilateral partnership without limits, which I take to mean they're prepared to fight World War III together. I mean, I remember talking about it here. Like, that to me is going to be always going to be a really interesting kind of unanswered question. What happened in that meeting? That meeting right before February 2022 with President Xi and Putin. I would really be fascinated to learn what was discussed in that meeting. The end of history can never happen because of the inherent contradictions inside a capitalist system will always boil over into fascism or revolution and rinse and repeat. It is amazing, isn't it? Because there could actually be an end of history, right? And all that would really, like, the New Deal was it. That's the amazing thing, I think, for me. We talked about how, like, the American empire, its hubris, the seeds of its own destruction, or its in hubris. But like, American capitalism would be fine if they just collectively agreed to make slightly less profit and just gave people basic necessities. You know, a threadbare kind of social democracy, healthcare, education, some kind of housing situation, which there's more than enough resources. There's more than enough money. And so many people would be like, you know what, I'm good. I'm not going to complain too much. I don't need to complain too much. You know, it would not cost a lot to pretty much buy off almost an entire generation, or certainly enough people to, you know, make it count. But they just can't do it. Just like America just can't take yes for an answer. It's these capitalists that run our society. They can't take yes for an answer. They need to have it all. You know, you see it internationally with the American empire. You see it domestically as well. They have to have everything. They can't have a little bit less. Even if the seeds of their own destruction are part of that. They've got to have everything. They've got to take everything. America could so easily become the Nordic model. Keep up the wars, like you're saying, if they just gave a few crumbs to the welfare state. It is incredible. And like the decay too, the cities are just decaying. Like it really doesn't have to be like that. But they're sick though. They're sick people. That's it. They have to have it all. They have to have everything. So here we are. That's where we are now. I just don't really get it, honestly. Like in the New Deal, the wealthy people in America during the New Deal were still wealthy. We could be pampered, sock-dem fascists. I know. I don't want to say I would be, or you would be, or anyone would be, but like I think a lot of people would be. Like when the top marginal tax rate was 90%, people were still wealthy. They were still doing just fine. Yeah, the FDR saved capitalism and they tried to coup him for it. And since they couldn't do the actual coup d'etat, they just spent the next several decades just chipping away at whatever reforms that he had put into place. Meager reforms that were nowhere near enough and nowhere near inclusive enough. And interestingly enough, Obama saved capitalism as well, and there were no such crumbs to the working class. There was no social democracy. Obama comes to power with a huge mandate, huge majorities, and an economic system in total crisis. And he saves the economic system and gives nothing to the actual people, except Obamacare. Congratulations. What's the real difference in your day-to-day if you're worth 28 billion instead of 280 billion? That's the sick part. That is the absolute sick part. Or if you have 1 billion. You know? What is the difference at that point? Amazing. It's just numbers I've got to have the numbers in the computer. I need to see my number just continue to go up. That's what it is. Nothing changes in my life. I just need to make those little numbers go up though. We simply use the computer to mark up the size of the account. No, I know it's HTA. It's enough to make you go crazy. With all the fraud, all the open corruption and fraud, no one, not only not in jail, but no one even loses their jobs. Like it is truly unimaginable. Like, this is why I don't feel bad about being a revolutionary and wanting to take away these people's power and assets. You know, you're doing them a favor. Like, look at the last Chinese emperor. The Chinese Revolution was a good thing for him spiritually. He was able to actually live a life of dignity and meaning after that. After like losing his power, losing his ability, his status as being this like all-powerful emperor. He was actually able to contribute to society and live a life of dignity and meaning after that. The Chinese revolutionaries did him a favor. The Romanovs, maybe not so much. Maybe that wasn't much of a favor, but still, it was like, you know, everyone else benefited. So. I have a lottery group at work and people talk about retiring if we won 4 million each. Like, why would you ever need more than that? Jesus. These people are sick. They're sick people. That's it. Ugh. Am I enjoying the weather? I mean, listen, I hate the winter. I hate when it's really cold. I don't like it. I find it unpleasant. It messes with my body. It makes my body hurt. I hate it. At the same time, it's February 9th. It's like 7 degrees Celsius right now. And like, that's alarming. That's actually kind of scaring me. It's freaking me out. Being a winter hater, that's it. Being a winter hater and a climate change understander has been an emotional roller coaster. Absolutely. Like, I don't physically hate that it's like early spring weather right now. But like, what the fuck? It's February 9th. Like, that's not good. It's 11 Celsius right now. Like, this is not good. I don't know. Nothing about this is good. (21 degrees Celsius here. We had 2 weeks of winter. It was 55 Fahrenheit yesterday in Milwaukee, with thunderstorms and massive lightning and a tornado touchdown outside of Madison. Great. Great. Yeah, no, I don't know. You know, it feels not good. And people, like, is it an El Nino thing? Oh, don't worry, it's just an El Nino year. Is it, though? Is that all it is? It feels like there's more than that. We keep getting these once-a-generation weather events every single year now. So I don't know. I think that's the question. Am I enjoying the weather? I don't know. Not really. Not really. But we got the big game coming up. That's fun. We got the big game. I'm hyped. The Summer Classic. Circus covered, you just need that bread. There we go. A picture popped up in Google from like 10 years ago where we got over a foot of snow. No, like this is really, really not normal. I cannot, because sometimes I think we have a kind of recency bias. Oh, it never snowed at this time. It never whatever in October. Like, I remember Halloween's when I was a little kid when it was snowing outside. But like, I have never known it to be a winter this mild generally. I think it snowed about twice, like 2 like major snowfalls. I have never known it to be as warm as it is right now in February, mid-February. That is nuts, you know? That is not something I have ever seen before. Anyone watch Close Friends of the Show, Tucker Carlson and Putin interview? We didn't watch any of it. We talked about it a little already, Baldwin. Like 20 degrees here in Philly. Jesus Christ. We talked about it a little, Baldwin. I don't know. We might revisit it. We might look at some of the clips. My birthday was a week ago. Even in the South, we used to get ice almost every year, which is why I hated it. This year was like 60. Well, the important thing, though, is that Brandon is going to build like 5 EV battery factories in America. So climate saved. Climate fixed. America's getting like, maybe going to get like 5 or 6 EV factories and some solar panel factories. So, should be smooth sailing. We're going to go ahead and fix that problem. Oh, and the really depressing thing I'm thinking about as well now is like the immigration stuff that was like, has gotten worse every single successive administration. It got worse under Obama, got worse under Trump, and now it's getting worse under Biden. And they're getting ready for the influx of climate refugees as well. Think about the refugee situation and how that's going to go in 10 years from now. Think about how many more refugees and climate and immigrants there are going to be as a result of climate change. And look at the way that our society is treating them, and our political class is like metastasizing against migrants right now. Read Camp of the Saints to see how the fascists will handle climate refugees. And look, that's the thing, Plunger Man, like not even fascists. Like now you have liberals talking about Camp of the Saints. Look at how liberals that support Biden are talking about like Palestine. They're talking about defending Western values and all this stuff. All these liberals that criticized Steve Bannon, that criticized Stephen Miller. They're Camp of the Saints liberals now. I find the lack of humanity really fatiguing, just how vicious people are towards those already suffering and fucking dying. Yeah, and as I mentioned in that TikTok that I did, that people saw, it's like people are doing that because they're like unwilling or unable to confront the actual people that have power in our society. It just feels impossible to confront these people in any meaningful way. So you turn around and you spit on the people below you. You spit on the people below you on the ladder, getting out of the crab bucket. I know what you mean, Cinnamon Challenge, but I just mean that like the mask is really slipping, so the distinction is going away. Like there was a distinction, there might not be a distinction in like ultimate ideology between the liberals and the fascists, but like there's at least a kind of somewhat, you could tell who was in which group, and that is, the veil is slipping even more, the mask is slipping, it's becoming just paper thin, the difference. Hey Hildy, how's it going? Can't wait for when climate change becomes so apparent that people can't look away anymore, but the libs in the West blame China for it. Well, everyone. And that's the thing, they're going to transition from, oh, is it happening, to it is happening, but there's nothing we can do about it except fortify the border with drones and build concentration camps for the refugees. That's what it's going to be. We can't actually do anything to stop it. We can build more borders, more cops, more bombs and weapons. Yeah, they're already blaming China and India. I don't know, man. None of it is good. None of this is good. It's eating dinner with fascists that always also makes you a fascist. Implementing their policies is fine and good. Is that not a big reason why people flee their countries? Climate change, that is. Well, I think it's already a reason, but I think it's going to be even more of a reason. Once you get the big, like, destructive heat bubbles and like the coastal cities start going underwater, then we're gonna look like the migrant situation now is gonna look charming in comparison. I know they already blame China, which what I mean is that they start making policy like sanctioning China for climate change rather than doing any policy domestically. Yeah, for sure. That crad babes. Like we pointed out, China right now, like we've gone over all the arguments about that, about emissions in China and all that stuff, but China right now, China last year invested more in solar energy than has ever been invested in the history of the United States. Because that's actually a society that has somewhat like forward thinking. We're thinking about the next generation and the generation after that. We're not thinking on a quarter by quarter basis. There you see this with their housing situation as well. We're not thinking about quarter by quarter profits. We're thinking long term. We're thinking generational. We're thinking over the decades, what is the policy going to be? Which is exactly why Western liberal democracy is bullshit, because we can't think like that. We can't think like beyond next quarter's profits, and we have this constant trade-off between the different factions of the same ruling class that just keep undoing whatever the other one's doing, and nothing happens, and nothing changes, and nothing gets built, nothing is resolved, nothing can be accomplished, except funneling more profits to the wealthiest people, the cartels that run the countries. Our entire system is designed to not think along these terms. No, but Sean, people aren't fine with it, and they are scared. But that's what because we have no left, because the left has been destroyed. Because we're living under decades of anti-communist propaganda. People don't have the answers, and that's why people are joining weird right-wing reactionary cults, and that's why they're blaming people lower on the ladder. That's why they're freaking out about LGBTQIA plus people, because all that energy, all that real genuine insecurity that they have is being funneled in these reactionary directions where it's then dissipated. We can't even agree that the president has mush brain. We're never fixing the climate. Well, the funny thing, Doc, not so strange, is that it's not even that they can't agree that the president has mush brain. The liberals at this point are just like, actually, it's fine that he's like this. Oh, you never lost your AirPod? Oh, he's a little forgetful. It's like they're not even agree. Like they agree that that barely knows what's going on, but they're like, actually, it's good. Actually, it's fine that he's like this. It's not a big deal. That's it, Hollywood. No war but the culture war, because we can't have these masses thinking about class. That's what it comes down to. He's too busy fixing stuff to remember his name, okay? Who amongst us hasn't forgotten who their son is, but also has nuke codes? Well, for like in the like lawsuit thing, which said that he forgot when his son died, and then when he did an angry press conference to talk about that, couldn't remember basic facts about it while he was defending himself from this. We're going to continue to see the most contorted, libbed up takes about ableism until the bombs fall. It's just, again, it's like, what needs to happen with these people for them to realize maybe I've been led astray here. Maybe my liberal ruling class doesn't have my best interests at heart. Like, what needs to happen for these people to start asking these questions? That's what I'm wondering. Where's the line? What needs to happen? I don't think there is a line, actually. I don't think there's anything that can happen. These people are so... They've taken on the idea of liberalism and like the Democratic Party to be a central part of their actual identities. And that now to admit that it's failing or it's inadequate is to admit that they themselves are inadequate. Well, for a lot of people, Hey Duke, the treats thing is going to be big. But I'm talking about for the kind of like the PMC, the kind of like management class, liberal orbiters. They're going down with the ship. There isn't anything that they won't just blame on Republicans. They'll blame it on Russia. They'll blame it on China. They'll blame anyone but themselves and their own ideology. His handlers need to be accused of elder abuse at this point. Well, think about it, like, this is a kind of sexist thing, frankly. Look at the Dianne Feinstein, like 2 years ago, or whenever it was. Sorry, 2020. The climate activists. I know what I'm doing. Dianne Feinstein. Biden last night. My brain is fine. I know what I'm doing. Your grandpa when you try to get the car keys. I'm fine. I know what I'm doing. You get the anger as well. Like, I think if you know anyone in your family or your life that's ever like gone through that cognitive decline, you recognize all those elements of Biden's speech patterns. The lashing out. The lead poisoning as well. Didn't help. Are we talking about Feinstein now? We're all sexist for pointing out she was so old she forgot where she was 4 minutes prior. Man. And that's it. There's people when she was like up for re-election being like, fucking retire. Don't run for re-election. And people are like, she can do whatever she wants. Sweaty. It's sexist to ask that someone that knows what the hell's going on run to take that seat. Did you see the random tweet about Kamala right before the Biden presser? Yeah, they're soft launching that. Oh, that's going to go great as well. People are going to love that. If it was Trump versus Kamala Harris, I don't know. I would not feel too good if I was a Democratic Party person. I would not feel too good about those prospects. I really do think he'll step down, but then Hillary runs against Trump. This is what I've been advocating for, Dakadoon. That's the 2024 campaign that this decaying, dying, pathetic empire deserves. And with all this stuff, with Biden's cognitive decline, with Palestine, and all the ways that Biden has failed, I'm still not ready to predict that Republicans are going to win that election. I don't know. They're so incompetent and inept and cruel and evil. If they win, it's not because I think that they're offering anything better than the Democrats. It's just going to be purely because of apathy and people just not voting for Democrats anymore and not wanting to be part of this system anymore. It will have nothing to do with Republicans actually being better or good in any way or offering any solutions or anything like that. It will be entirely just because of people just giving up. I think the most likely is Republicans win popular, Dems win electoral, and then we'll see the world crumble. That's entirely possible, but I mean, that's what I thought was going to happen in 2020. And the can was kicked down the road. We saw some fireworks, right? But the can was kicked down the road again. I think we can probably just expect that to just get that kind of thing to just get worse each time. Every cycle, it's just going to get a little bit worse. Can you imagine losing to a Carnival Barker game show host 2 out of 3 times as a party? And I still maintain as well that Trump would have won if COVID had not have happened. I will always believe that. Let's look at some of this Biden thing. Let's get started with that. Let's look at some of these clips because we've been talking about it, but I haven't really looked at a lot of the clips. Mr. Robot petrodollar collapse 24 baby. That's the beauty. That's the beautiful thing about right now. We just don't know what's going to happen. It's exciting. Before we move on to these clips, though, folks, 1 hour into the stream, if you can, please subscribe to TRRS. Do you feel insane by looking around and looking at the TV and what the people are saying on the news and what our political leaders are saying and doing? Do you feel insane when you look at that? Well, one thing that helps that is when you tune into this program where we can talk frankly about these things. And the only way that I'm able to keep doing this show, folks, is if people subscribe and help me make the little number at the bottom of the screen go up. The little number's got to go up every single day. So if you can, please subscribe, gift subs, bits, tips, Patreon, whatever it is. Every little bit helps, and it's the only way that I am able to continue doing the show each and every day, is if people subscribe to this program. Subscribe to TRRS. Any moment now, the pipes are going to get unclogged. The pipes are going to get unclogged any minute now. I know it.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Onyx, thanks for the gifted sub. Much like Brandon, the subs are also fine. Exactly. We're just doing great. We're doing great over here. I gotta ask someone: is there like a collection of clips? Is there like a collection of clips from the Biden's thing last night? Did anyone compile that? It's weird. Normally you see like Aaron
You've just
Rupar.
become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
Oh geez, Comrade Bushy, thanks so much for 5 gifted subs. Hell yeah. Comrade Bushy, thank you. The thing is only 12 minutes. Okay, that's good. That's fine. Let's look at that. Comrade Bushy, I really appreciate it. Does anyone else want to subscribe before we move on here? Well, that's what I mean, Dakadu. Normally, Aaron Rupar is out there compiling all these clips. Where is he on this? Here's Joe Brandon.
A few things before I take your questions. As you know, the special counsel released his findings today about their look into my handling of classified documents. I was pleased to see he reached a firm conclusion that no charges should be brought against me in this case.
And that's the thing. This whole case, basically the summary of this case is like, this man is just like so old and he doesn't know what's going on, so it's not actually a crime. This is like that thing when you're like old and you can just go and steal from Walmart or whatever. And when someone asks you about it, you just go like, what? Well, I don't know. What's Susan? And they go, yeah, okay, just get out of here. I think that's kind of what was going on here. How much adrenochrome did they use up for this? Well, Dakadun, that's the thing. I think there's an element of it that like they're like, we're not giving him the juice anymore. We're not giving him the juice because it seems like there's this effort to maybe undermine what he's doing. They're like, no more of the presidential adrenochrome now. Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying, Sean. Yeah. They need to double his monster intake.
Investigation going back more than 40 years, even into the 1970s when I was still a new United States Senator. The special counsel acknowledged I cooperated completely. I did not throw up any roadblocks. I sought no delays. In fact, I was so determined to give the special counsel what he needed, I went forward with a 5-hour in-person interview over 2 days on October the 8th and 9th of last year, even though Israel had just been attacked by Hamas on the 7th and I was very occupied. It was in the middle of handling an international crisis. I was especially pleased to see special counsel
5 whole hours after 2 days. Wow.
A stark distinction and difference between this case and Mr. Trump's case. The special counsel wrote, and I quote, "Several material distinctions between Mr. Trump's case and Mr. Biden's are clear," continuing to quote, "most notably, after given multiple chances to return classified documents to avoid prosecution, Mr. Trump allegedly did the opposite. According to the indictment, he not only refused to return the documents for many months, he also obstructed justice by enlisting others to destroy evidence and then to lie about it. In contrast, he went on to say Mr. Biden turned in classified documents to the National Archives and the Department of Justice, consented to the search of multiple locations, including his home, sat for a voluntary interview, and in other ways cooperated with the investigation," end of quote. I've seen the headlines since the report was released about my willful retention of documents. These assertions are not only misleading, they're just plain wrong. On page 215...
Forget the facts of the case, though. It's just politically, how dumb is it for them to name a special counsel for the other party? Democrats love this shit, though. They whenever they want to hire someone like that, you get a Republican, and then they can't accuse you of doing anything like political or doing any kind of shenanigans. It's brilliant. Whether it's Robert Mueller or whoever, we'll get one of these old Republican guys, and then no one can accuse us of like trying to do politics. It's brilliant. It's genius. And the legitimacy of the institution is preserved. Wonderful.
If you had a chance, I know it's a thick document. On page 215, the report of the special counsel found the exact opposite. Here's what he wrote. There is, in fact, a shortage of evidence that I willfully retained classified materials related to Afghanistan. On page 12, the special counsel also wrote, for in other documents, the decision to decline criminal charges was straightforward. The evidence suggests that Mr. Biden did not willfully retain these documents.
Yeah, or Merrick Garland is another example. Yeah, I'm finally seeing libs accept that Garland's appointment was a terrible idea. Like, they fetishize these people. They fetishize these Sorkin-esque, like, moderate Republicans. Moderate Republicans are this, like, this almost like a mythical being, like an elf. And Democrats fetishize them so much because it makes them think that these institutions have some kind of legitimacy, or that this process still has some kind of legitimacy.
The evidence said I did not willfully retain these documents. In addition, I know there's some attention paid to some language in the report about my recollection of events. There's even reference that I don't remember when my son died. How in the hell?
This man is such a liar. The voice quiver comes in, the emotion comes in, when my son died. He always uses that. He uses that to try and manipulate people, like, so much.
Don't remember when my son died. How in the hell dare he raise that? Frankly, when I was asked the question, I thought to myself, it wasn't any of their damn business. Let me tell you something. Some of you have commented, I wear since the day he died, every single day, the rosary he got from Our Lady of...
Sorry,
Memorial Day we hold a service.
the rosary he got from where, sir? Excuse me? What? Where was that? Where was that from? He's doing his best impression of Clint Eastwood in Gran Torino. Important to point out, this was the press conference to show that he's not cognitively impaired. I think that's the interesting thing to keep in mind. And for the first 3 minutes, kind of mostly okay. Yeah, mostly okay. This is the one we're going to show everyone how sharp and lucid that he still is. Not lucid like lucid in the chat, but lucid as in, like, able to articulate yourself. Let's just go back one moment there. As you're using the death of your son to push back on this idea, let's just hear that one more time.
Since the day he died, every single day, the rosary he got from Our Lady of... Every Memorial Day we hold a service remembering him, attended by friends and family and the people who loved him.
Good.
I don't need anyone. I don't need anyone to remind me when he passed away or if he passed away. Simple truth is, I sat for a 5-hour interview over 2 days of events going back 40 years. At the same time I was managing an international crisis, their task was to make a decision about whether to move forward with charges in this case. That was their decision to make. That's the counsel's decision to make. That's his job. And they decided not to move forward. For any extraneous commentary, they don't know what they're talking about. It has no place in the...
Yeah, just tell us the date. Just say the month and year that it happened, sir. And we're right here listening.
The bottom line is the matter is now closed. I'm going to continue what I've always focused on. My job of being President of the United States of America. Now, thank you, and I'll take some questions.
President Biden, something the special counsel said in his report is that one of the reasons you were not charged is because, in his description, you are a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory.
I'm well-meaning, and I'm an elderly man, and I know what the hell I'm doing. I've been president, and I put this country back on its feet. I don't need his recommendation. It's totally out.
How bad is your memory, and can you continue as president?
My memory is so bad, I let you speak.
Okay. I gotta ask the chat, is that a banger or what? Is that a banger or a flub? That I kind of like that, honestly. I actually kind of like that one. I think he cooked a little bit on that one. What do you think, chat? That kind of popped me. Delivery does throw it. I thought that was pretty good. Like, just in the interest of fairness here. In the interest of being fairness. In the interest of being fair. It's up there. Why did you go back to the jerk store? I like the contempt that he has for Ducey. I may not like Biden very much, but like that's one thing I find relatable about him. What did he call him that time? He's a stupid bastard or something like that. That's something that's very relatable about Biden. If he was like passing decent economic policies and calling Steve Ducey's shitty fail son a dumbass on TV, I would probably think he was pretty cool. Delivering a red hot zinger while trying to keep my teeth in my head. Aside from the genocide stuff, that the genocide is problematic. That's one thing that I'm personally not into.
That's
Your memory has gotten worse, Mr.
No,
President.
my memory is not good. My memory is fine. My memory, take a look at what I've done since I become president. None of you thought I could pass any of the things I got passed. How'd that happen? You know, I guess I just forgot what was going on.
Mr. President.
Voters have concerns about,
And this is when he starts bragging about his record that I think I'm maybe less
only going to fuel further concerns about your age.
Only by some of you.
less convinced.
Criminal liability today. But do you take responsibility for at least being careless with classified material?
I take responsibility for not having seen exactly what my staff was doing. It goes in and points out things that appeared in my garage, things that came out of my home, things that were moved not by me but my staff.
Mr. President, for months when you were asked about your age, you would respond with the words, "Watch me." Many American people have been watching, and they have expressed concerns about your age.
That is your judgment. That is your judgment. That is not the judgment of the press.
They expressed concerns about your mental acuity. They say that you are too old. Mr. President, in December, you told me that
Seriously,
you believe
Sam.
there are many other Democrats.
Put this man in a chair with a blanket,
So why
please.
does it have to be you now? What is your answer
Because
to
I'm the
that
most
question?
qualified person in this country to be president of the United States and finish the job I started.
Do you believe that, guys? Mr. President, why are you confusing the names of world leaders?
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
I did not share classified information. I did not share it.
With your ghostwriter.
With my ghostwriter, I did not. Guarantee you did not.
But the special counsel said in the
Well, no,
report
he
that he
did not say that.
Okay.
He did not say that.
But Mr. President, one other...
Let me answer your question.
This is so
The
chaotic.
matter is, what I didn't
This is
want
just pure
repeated-
chaos.
I didn't want
Where's
him
the
done, I
system in
didn't
place
read to
here?
him, was I had written a long memorandum.
And
to
also these
President
fucking, like,
Obama.
I think it's important to talk about Biden's, like, the president of the United States and his, like, cognitive ability. Where is this energy about any other subject? Where is this energy about, like, confronting them over their foreign policy decisions or Palestine or whatever it is? Why is it just now when it's like, now we can really nail him on this stuff because it doesn't really matter or change anything? It does feel a little like a soft coup. It feels a little like he's being set up for failure here, honestly. Yeah, give me this energy all the time, Baldwin. Seriously. They don't want to change the message, but they want to change the messenger. They're getting ready to turn the page. But that's the thing. Turn it to who? The whole Kamala thing, like, did the tweet about, like, oh, Kamala Harris is so great before they did this. Really, though? Do they think that's the solution? Is Kamala the solution? Is Hillary the solution? That's Decadu, and that's what it keeps coming back to. That's what it keeps coming back to. It's her turn. It's her turn. I want to hear the press make him address the Genocide Joe nickname. Well, that's the thing. They won't, because the people that go to these press conferences all agree with his policies on Palestine. They'll agree. So they're not going to do that. They're genocidal maniacs themselves.
Why we should not be in Afghanistan. And I was of this multiple pages. And so what I was referring to, I said classified. I should have said should be private because it was a contact between the president and the vice president as to what was going on. That's what it is referring to. It was not classified information in that document. That was not classified.
Look at this. Again, Joe Biden is helping a genocide happening right now, so my empathy is low. I felt a twinge of empathy there when all the shouting starts and he has this confused expression on his face. I felt a small twinge of empathy. I know I shouldn't, right? I know I shouldn't. This man he's a monster. He's a monstrous person. He's overseen the death of over 30,000 people in Gaza right now. So don't have any illusions about that. When everyone starts shouting though, and you see him go he recoils a little bit.
That document. That was not classified.
He called on me. When you look back at this incident, is there anything you would do differently now? And do you think that a special prosecutor should have been appointed in the first place in both of these cases?
First of all, what I would have done is oversee the transfer of the material that was in my office, in my offices. I should have done that. If I go back, I didn't have the responsibility to do that. That was my staff was supposed to do that, and they referenced that in the report.
Yeah, I agree,
Staff did
Carnova.
not do it in the way that
I can't help it. Okay, I'm a good
I
person.
didn't know how half the boxes got in my garage until I found out staff gathered them up, put them together, and took them to the garage in my home. And all the stuff that was in my home was in filing cabinets that were either locked or able.
Anytime he's talking about random stuff that he didn't know was in his garage, he just sounds so much older.
Mar-a-Lago in a public place.
I don't think anyone has ever been as old as this
High
man.
Classified. Didn't have any of that red stuff on it. You know what I mean? Around the corners, none of that. And so I wish I had paid more attention to how the documents were being moved and where. I thought they were being moved to the archives. I thought all of it was being moved. That's what I thought. Now, what was the last part of your question?
Whether a special counsel should have been appointed in this case and in the case of your rival president, former president.
I think a special counsel should have been appointed. And the reason I think a special counsel should have been appointed is because I did not want to be in a position that they looked at Trump and weren't going to look at me, just like they looked at the vice president. And the fact is they made a firm conclusion. I did not break the law, period. Thank you all very, very much.
Gotta come. He leaves and then comes back. This is where I think it goes off the rails too. Oh man, look at his face. He looks like Bigfoot. When you see the image of Bigfoot that you see. What the fuck?
Hello? I'm cold and there are wolves after me.
The hostage negotiation, look.
I could see his aides like watching him go back to the podium going, please leave. Please don't go back. Please don't go back. Oh God, he's going back. He's going back to the podium.
As you know, that the conduct of the response in the Gaza Strip has been over the top. I think
over the top.
As
It's
know,
you. That's you. That's you,
initially,
sir.
The president of Mexico, Sisi, did not want to open up the gate to allow humanitarian material to get in.
Oh boy. Oh no. Oh. That's the moment where the aides are just like, so the response has been over the top. It's like this, like we talked about yesterday, this effort to distance themselves from this in any way, whether it's Blinken or Biden, the crocodile tears. We need to help the people of Gaza they did this. They're paying for this. They just helped kill over 30,000 people. And then they say it's been over the top. Your response has been over the top. They said no red lines. He went and gave Netanyahu a big hug. We watched it on this very channel. He flew over there and he gave Netanyahu a big hug right when this was going on. Yeah, and then he confuses the president of Egypt and the president of Mexico in his press conference where he's trying to talk about people how is cognitively not impaired. I think this is a stitch up. The press doesn't get to behave like this unless they're given the green light. Yeah, I honestly, it's getting my tinfoil hat senses tingling quite a bit as well. The press conference about how I'm not mentally declining has people asking a lot of questions already answered by my press conference. Oh, that is real bad.
I think that, as you know, initially, the president of Mexico, Sisi, did not want to open up the gate to allow humanitarian material to get in. I talked to him.
Yeah.
I convinced him to open the gate. I talked to Bibi to open the gate on the Israeli side. I've been pushing really hard to get humanitarian assistance.
There's Israelis blocking all the assistance from coming in. And they just defunded UNRWA, which distributes all that humanitarian assistance. There's no other organization that's remotely set up to actually distribute humanitarian aid to people, except UNRWA, which they just slashed the budget of.
People who are in trouble and dying, and it's got to stop. Number one.
That Mexico-Gaza gate.
I was also in the position that I'm the guy that made the case that we have to do much more to increase the amount of material going in, including fuel, including other items. I've been on the phone with the Qataris, I've been on the phone with the Egyptians, I've been on the phone with the Saudis to get as much aid as we possibly can into Gaza. They're innocent people, innocent women and children who are also in badly in need of help. And so that's what we're pushing. And I'm pushing very hard now to deal with ceasefire because, I've been working tirelessly in this deal.
Egypt and Mexico are pretty close together, so easy mistake. They're sepia.
To a sustained pause in the fighting.
They're hot and they've got pyramids.
The actions taking place in the Gaza Strip. And because I think if we could get the delay for that.
Netanyahu just shot down the idea of a ceasefire. We covered this yesterday. They just shot down the idea of a ceasefire. They're blocking all the humanitarian aid. So what would you say you do here? You're sending them the bombs to do it. You're demanding that they do stuff that they're not doing. And you have no fucking idea what's going on or who you're talking to.
The initial delay, I think that we would be able to extend that so that we could increase the prospect that this fighting in Gaza changes. There's also negotiations. You may recall, in the very beginning.
Man, he looks bad.
Right before Hamas attacked, I was in contact with the Saudis and others to work out a deal where they would recognize Israel's right to exist.
Well, that's gone
make them
now.
Part of the Middle East, recognize them fully in return for certain things that the United States would commit to.
That's over now. That's over and done with.
That we were proposing to do related to two items. I'm not going to go in detail, but one of them was to deal with the protection against their arch enemy to the northwest, northeast, I should say. The second one, by providing ammunition and material for them to defend themselves.
Defend themselves against 10,000 little
That's
kids.
the time frame when this broke out.
12,000.
I have no proof what I'm
Over
about
that
to
now.
say, but it's not unreasonable to suspect that the Hamas understood what was about to take place and wanted to break it up before it happened.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. I don't know. Not great. Not so great.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Dummy Dorco, thanks for the gifted sub. I appreciate it. They know he's cooked and they're pushing him out to pasture. Just, it does feel a little bit like that. I heard Reagan was worse towards the end. Well, that's the amazing thing. You see people like Jonathan Chait being like, so what if he is cognitively impaired? Like, that's where they're at on the cope scale now. If the advisors are there advising him to do good things, then it doesn't even matter. Reagan was just as bad. And that's like all they have to say. Oh, you think this is bad? Well, Trump is worse. It's like, okay, that's not an argument. That's not an argument. Yeah, so what our guy barely knows what's going on or who he's talking to at any given time. Trump's even worse. Like, that's not good. Like, you understand how that's worse, right? Like, you're saying, like, that's the whole important election, the most important election of our lifetimes, part 20. This is the contest between two people who just don't know what the hell's going on. This is the shining city on the hill. The beacon of Western liberal democracy. This is what you're doing. This is where it's gone. And there's still people defending this. I also never saw Trump this bad. Trump was like, because I think he's pretty bad as well, but he doesn't come across as like a senior as much as Biden does, even though Trump is a senior as well. But Biden has that like tiredness. He has that like bone tiredness that Trump doesn't really have. Trump says all kinds of crazy shit. There's no denying that. Biden looks and sounds like he belongs in a nursing home. And you can track the decline. You can look at clips from Biden, even in like 2016, 2017. Way, way more coherent energy. Yeah, he has the dry, drunk, slurred speech even when he's not glitching. Like that's the thing. But there's people defending this. There's people being like, actually, it's normal. Actually, it's fine that he's like this. Oh, you've never lost your car keys? You don't know. Where's your AirPod, chat? Where's your left AirPod? And it's like, you know what? I have ADHD. I forget stuff all the time. I'm also not the president of the United States. I think that's an important distinction. Nor is anyone in this chat. That you know of. If someone is in the chat, I guess I'm doing a bad job convincing people. Why is the political class pretending as if either of these candidates are acceptable enough to run a car wash, let alone a country? What do they even get out of it? I don't know. Access? A career? TV time? I don't know.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Who hasn't also worn their underwear backwards while being the president?
Squatch, thanks so much for 33 months resub of tier 2. Thank you, Squatch, for an important question. We've all been there. We've all been there. That was really not good. A senile gerontocracy. It's all that dying empire vibes. Just like the dying empire stench is just palpable now. This whole coming election is just you. It's just you can almost taste it. Someone just take this empire out back and put it out of its misery. Seriously.
Good morning and welcome to Rising. I'm Amisha Cross, filling in for Amber Duke. I'm joined at the desk remotely today by Jessica Burbank. Wonderful to be hosting with you today, Jess.
I think it's a good man I wouldn't trust to drive a lawnmower, has the nuclear codes. Imagine you got on a public bus. Imagine you got on a public bus and Joe Biden, not someone like Joe Biden, but Joe Biden, in the form that we just saw him, was driving the bus. Hey, get on, champ. Go in the back of the... Get on. We're going to the next stop. Would you feel comfortable? Would you feel comfortable with like being in that situation? I'm just gonna get it and walk, sir. Just instantly get off. Yeah, no thank you. This just seems really like a bad idea.
Yeah, it's good to be with you, Amisha. We're going to try and not have too much fun with Amber out. We miss you, Amber. We'll hold it down.
Absolutely. Well, Jessica, you know there's been a lot of crazy news. Why don't you start us off today?
Well, Amisha, President Biden is not happy with Special Counsel Robert Hur's characterization
I have my AirPods in. I'd probably think he was telling me the machine I tap my card on doesn't work and just keep walking. That's fair.
Him as a, quote, sympathetic, well-meaning, elderly man with a poor memory. In his investigation of Biden's handling of classified documents, Hur wrote, Mr. Biden's memory appeared to have significant limitations. Biden's recorded conversations are often painfully slow, with Mr. Biden struggling to remember events and straining at times to read and relay his own notebook entries. Biden apparently, quote, did not remember when he was vice president, forgetting on the first day of the interview when his term ended. He did not remember, even within several years, when his son Beau died. Now the president angrily hit out at Hur's retelling of events during a press conference yesterday. Let's watch that.
I know there's some attention paid to some language in the report about my recollection of events. There's even reference that I don't remember when my son died. How in the hell dare he raise that? Frankly, when I was asked the question, I thought to myself, wasn't any of their damn business.
President Biden, something the special counsel said in his report is that one of the reasons you were not charged is because, in his description, you are a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory.
I'm well-meaning, and I'm an elderly man, and I know what the hell I'm doing. I've been president, and I put this country back on its feet. I don't need his recommendation. It's
How
totally
bad is your memory, and can you continue as president?
My memory is so bad, I let you speak.
Continue as president.
My memory is so bad I let you speak.
That I'm sorry. That's a yes for me. For all for everything we've talked about over the last 45 minutes, that's a yes from me on that one. I'm in Brandon's corner on that one.
In a statement, White House special counsel also discounted Hur's assessment, writing, quote, "We do not believe that the reports..."
Yeah, they skipped the Rosary of Our Lady of, the whole thing. We were supposed to talk about how great your memory is when it comes to your deceased son, and you couldn't remember basic facts about the prop that you were using to establish this. Yeah, that's not great either.
Treatment of President...
I've heard it like 5 times, so I don't get it. Well, I don't know, because he knows that Steve Doocy is annoying and a piece of shit. So it's like, I forgot how annoying you are. That's how bad my memory is, because I'm letting you talk to me right now. That's my understanding of the diss. Which I guess is almost it's almost like insulting yourself at the same time. Notice he didn't say, my son died on this date. He just got mad. Red Scary, you missed the beginning. It's not just that he just got mad. It's that he said, I still to this day carry a rosary for my son that he got at Our Lady of... Let's rewind the tape. Right here.
I don't remember when my son died.
In case you missed it.
How in the hell dare he raise that? Frankly, when I was asked the question, I thought to myself, it wasn't any of their damn business. Let me tell you something. Some of you have commented, I wear since the day he died, every single day, the rosary he got from Our Lady of... Every Memorial Day we hold a service remembering
Yes. This is what I'm saying.
Biden's memory is accurate or appropriate. The report uses highly prejudicial language to describe a commonplace occurrence among witnesses, a lack of recall of years-old events. Now, as a reminder, Hur did not find Biden criminally liable for any alleged mishandling of classified documents. He, however, did find that Biden, quote, willfully retained and shared highly classified information while he was a private citizen.
Compared to a poll from back in 2020, voters have lost a significant amount of confidence in Biden's mental acuity. Voters who told
Who are these people in 2020 that thought he was mentally sharp?
And effective.
I've been talking about this man not knowing what the hell's going on for like 5 years now.
In 2024.
Who were all these people in 2020 that were like, no, he seems
Jessica,
okay to me?
Again, lots to discuss here. The special counsel's report, the big gimme here was that there was no criminality found, quite frankly. But because of some of the comments that special counsel Hur made, now there is the news story that, Biden's not mentally fit. He's forgetting things. Quite frankly, as someone who lost a parent to cancer, I don't think there's any way in hell you forget the date or the time or the feelings of those events, no matter how old you are. I think that more than likely he was just frustrated at even being asked that question because of the level of ridiculousness that it is. But I do think that this election cycle, age is going to be a big question. It continues to be a big question, not only for President Biden.
Exactly. Worked out for Feinstein. Trust the process.
Trump, who most recently has confused Nikki Haley and Nancy Pelosi, has thought that he's running against former President Barack Obama and has been making bomb sounds on the campaign trail.
Right, exactly. It's not just something that's unique to President Joe Biden.
And I agree that dementia's not funny. And I, like I said, I feel twinges of empathy as well. He is he's facilitating a genocide right now, though.
He wasn't able to recall things in his own notebook. These seem like significant
so my empathy
events.
is
I don't
low.
think the special counsel would raise these for no reason. But of course, we have seen Donald Trump do very similar things, getting very angry at Nancy Pelosi when asked about Nikki Haley. Yes, they're kind of, older women with brown hair, but beyond that don't have much in common, especially when you consider the political scene. So a bit shocking that the two candidates that are front running because they're the selection of the party in the case of Joe Biden, it seems that we're in a case where we have, you know, the old folks' home of Washington, the oldest Congress in history.
Yeah, he literally
These are
said
the
he has
front
no
runners
empathy.
for
That's true.
president. When we had people like Rubio leave politics, or rather Mitt Romney. Now I'm confusing two similarly looking politicians. But when Mitt Romney left and he said we need a new generation coming into Washington, I fully support that. But we also need a new generation that's going to bring new ideas, not more of the same hand-picked establishment candidates.
We also have policy to think about here. One of the things I think that the president came out forcefully last night and talked about was the policies, was that he got America back on track. We're looking at an economy that by all marks and standards is doing really well, even though that's been
Who's setting these marks, though? This has been the very strange thing. You know? The economy's, he got it back on its feet. The economy's just doing great. This tension between like people's real lives and the numbers is... It's weird, isn't it? It's so weird. Look at the numbers. Look at the jobs numbers. Look at the charts. All the graphs, all the job numbers are just great. GDP numbers are going up. The economy is just doing absolutely great. So how many million people living paycheck to paycheck? How many people being crushed by medical debt, student debt? How many people just unable to afford a home? It's so bizarre to me. The numbers, the charts, the graphs. I saw that clip with David Pacman a few weeks ago. People are really just saying like, no, the economy, like I don't care about what people are saying about people's actual lives. I don't care about housing costs. I don't care about grocery costs. I don't care about healthcare, childcare costs. People struggling to get by, people completely getting ground into the dust. The charts, the numbers, the graphs are all looking good for Diamond Joe. If I do a Scarynomics, we have to get into the stock numbers versus like number of multiple job holders, number of people who are food insecure. Well, definitely let's plan to do that sometime in the next couple of weeks, Red Scary, if you'd like to come back, because I'd be happy to talk to you about that. And I think that's a really good way of framing it. You know, the numbers that like people in the Biden administration or people that are angling to be part of that sort of like liberal PMC class, like Will Stancil or whoever, versus like actual economic indicators of like how people's lives are going. I think that's a good way to frame that. Yeah, unemployment is low. People aren't thrilled they need 2 to 3 jobs and still can't keep an apartment or food on the table. Well, that's the thing. People being able to get a job, a shitty gig economy job, a job that does not pay enough, like that does not pay enough in any city in the country to afford like a 2-bedroom apartment. Just because they have a job doesn't mean that the economy is good. Hey, Lawsuit, do I like to read? I love to read. I just don't do it enough because my brain is messed up.
Specifically coming out of the pandemic, a global pandemic that the world felt and that many economies across the globe are still really struggling from. I think that what we have here, again, are 2 senior candidates, it is what it is, who in Joe Biden's case is someone who is a sitting president. So when you have that, you also have the incumbency advantage. That is what it is. And in Donald Trump's case, he has blown all of his competition out of the water. It's not that he doesn't have competition. It's that within his party, he runs that party. And we're seeing time and again that happens to be the case, even though Nikki Haley is still in this race. I think that there is issue to be taken here with the fact that age considerably comes up, and I think in a much more perverse way as it relates to Joe Biden than it has with Donald Trump, particularly because that is a line of attack that we've seen time and time again. Unfortunately, neither candidate can do anything about their age. I would like to stay at 25 for the rest of my life. That's never going to happen. I'm sure Joe Biden, when asked questions in that probe about incidents that happened 40 plus years ago. Hell, most of us can't remember something that happened a decade ago, 5 years ago. Those details get a little bit sketchy. That is not uncommon.
Yeah, I think the main concern here among young voters, I want to go to that poll where we saw, it was an NBC poll, a double-digit 20-point difference between Trump and Biden, showing Trump winning with just a 3% reported margin of error. Now, we had a Quinnipiac poll during a similar time frame from about January 25th to the 30th, both national polls. But in the recent NBC poll, you can see if you scroll down and really read the crosstabs that they asked a few questions to get a sense of who the people they were talking to were, what the state of the country was. And while the ideological breakdown was pretty representative of other robust surveys on this, they asked whether or not they had used TikTok, the respondents. And 77% said no, which tells me that the respondents of this poll lean very old and that the youth vote wasn't represented. Now, we know younger voters lean towards Biden, and we also know there was a nationally representative Quinnipiac poll of registered voters as well that had a 6-point difference with Biden in the lead. And so I really think when we're looking at this polling, we're treating a sample as if it's random when really it's the result of who's on these lists of nationally, registered voters that have a cell phone available, which means they gave it to a political campaign at some point. They gave it so that they could take surveys before they entered it on an online platform. It just seems to me, and there's some data to back this, that that's overwhelmingly older people. So how representative the polls are of who shows up, I'm not sure. But we also know that Biden's not doing terribly well with younger voters, mostly on the issue of student loan debt and on the issue of his handling of the Middle East. But when we look at the economy, I think it's a mistake that a lot of conservatives have been making to say, oh, look at how bad the economy is under Biden. This is Bidenomics, the results of his policies. And I am to the left of Biden, but I will say that the stimuluses that were passed under the Biden presidency absolutely saved us from a recession. We would be in a much worse place if it were not for the IRA and the spending around COVID stimulus. So that's one thing.
But then all that was pulled whack.
And I agree with you.
All those reforms were then walked back. And that's like the stimulus went to small business owners and like Fortune 500 companies. And the COVID stimulus did begin as a Trump policy. That's the amazing thing about it. Like we talked about before, all Biden really needed to do, similar to Obama, we had this conversation like an hour or two ago, whenever it was, came to a point where it's just like everything was handed to him. You had all this kind of once in a generation social spending because of COVID. All they had to do was make that permanent, make the unemployment benefits permanent, make the child tax credit permanent. That was there. And under their watch, which did have a huge economic impact, a massive economic impact, all they had to do was just make that permanent, and they couldn't do that. My neighbor built himself a nice RV barn with this PPP loan. Oh, good for him. That's good. My jet ski business needed those PPP loans. Yeah, and President Manchin vetoed most of the bill. And what did Joe Brandon do about that? Did he ever criticize Joe Manchin once for dismantling his whole agenda? Not once. Yeah, I regret it as well. We didn't have PPP here, but like I did get CERB in Canada, which was nice, honestly. I think I could have gotten more, though. I could have gotten some of the small business stuff, too. I regret not getting that as well.
You there. I also think that national polls are problematic. We've seen that time and time again in multiple election cycles. State polls are
the DOJ is going to be working through PPP fraud cases for the next decade.
Attention to what's actually happening on the ground and things that turn out in the elections themselves. The national polling has consistently been false and created false narratives as it relates to Joe Biden, no matter who they're polling. But on top of that, we know that polls don't vote, people do. And South Carolina showed tried and true black voters and younger voters. Those are the top bases for the Democratic Party, the top bases for Joe Biden. They will come out and vote for Joe Biden in November.
Right.
Will they?
Yeah. There's a base of Shore voters that I think, don't get polled too frequently, consistently show up for Democrats. We also have this issue of, just general low voter turnout for presidential contests.
Distant relative of mine used her PPP loans to pay off her IRS debt. I used my SURB payments to get this PC, which I started doing this stream. You can thank SURB payments for me being able to do this stream in the first place. So I technically did start a small business with that.
Like 60% of the country not show up and cast a ballot has been a huge problem that really neither of the major two political parties are inspiring people to participate.
You can thank Trudeau. This stream is financed by Trudeau bucks.
Rather staying home. Highest, it's been about 60% people casting a ballot in a presidential election.
No, it's not a pyramid scheme, Arnalda.
And we now have a situation where there are some pretty viable third-party candidates, and when you introduce them into the polling, things get really interesting. And so I would like to see, more 2024 polls with more independent candidates running. We have, RFK Jr. being considered frequently, and that has shown a lot of variance among the polling. Some polls show it's better for Trump. It gives him the leg up. Some show it's better for Biden. But I really think when we talk about third-party candidates and we talk about spoiler candidates, we can't really talk about it like that when we have 40% of the country not inspired to show up. Those are gettable voters. Of course, your regular voters could leave your party and vote for a third-party candidate, but when we have so many people not inspired to even participate, I think you really can't make the excuse that another candidate is spoiling the electorate.
And we have more rising coming up.
Okay. So you are funded by the military-industrial complex? No. Merely the Canadian taxpayer. That's all. Merely the Canadian taxpayer. I'm just a humble tax subsidized streamer. Biden's done. I mean, Junko Space Mommy. It certainly does. I mean, it certainly does seem like that, but who knows? Who knows at this point? Is Biden going to run? Is he not going to run? Is he going to be unalive? Is he going to be dead? Is Trump going to run? Is Trump going to be in jail? We don't know. We don't know the answers to any of these questions. And the election's in like 8 months. It's kind of exciting, isn't it? It's kind of exciting. I like not knowing. It's fun. What about Canada? Are we going to be stuck with Pierre forever next election? I think yes. I think we will indeed be stuck with Pierre. The Biden shit last night was crazy. Yes, we just watched it. Pierre does not have the juice. I don't think he does, but it seems like the reactionary movement has coalesced around him and determined that he's the guy. I don't think he has the juice either, but there's just a certain confluence of political forces. People are tired of Trudeau. He's overseen this decline. People are sick of it. They want change. There's this big reactionary movement that's incredibly anti-Trudeau, and they seem to have coalesced around this guy. Whether I think he's got the juice or not, it's irrelevant. It seems like these people, for whatever reason, think that he does have the juice. It's sad how many people are buying Pierre's bullshit. It is sad, and our media is contributing to it as well. Our media is allowing himself to position himself as this common sense economic populist. Yeah, and he's got big money behind him. He's got the big reactionary movement behind him. We're due for a conservative party. I think we're fucked, actually. But that's the thing, even with everything, with Biden and the Democrats and all this stuff, I'm still not going to sit here and predict that they're going to lose. I think it's a very likely outcome, but Republicans and conservatives are just so evil and inept and corrupt and don't actually speak to any people's material needs that They still may blow it. They're that bad at their jobs. They still may blow it running against Biden, but I certainly wouldn't feel good about it if I was a big Biden guy going into it. Okay, what else do I have here? Whoops. Sorry. Okay, what else do I have here? I've got some clips of there's a good Ben Norton thread about Tucker Carlson. I have something to take a look at that I think people are going to laugh at. I got some stuff on the docket here that I think you'll enjoy. I'm just thinking about how to organize that. That's right, I got the stuff. I'm buff and I've got the stuff. Let's just do some Palestine stuff. And then we'll see if we have time for Tucker Carlson. We already kind of talked about it, but we'll see if we have time to look at some of that. And so now the last, according to CBS News, the last Hamas stronghold of Rafah. So it's like the most moral army in the world has been telling Palestinians for the last 4 months to go south, move south. Here you have U.S. media still whitewashing this. New attacks on Hamas. How can you still call them attacks on Hamas after over 30,000 people killed? Like it's straight. It's beyond journalistic malpractice to still call it attacks on Hamas when we all see it's been months of evidence now that it's Israel attacks on civilians. It's attacks on little kids. It's attacks on doctors and nurses. It's attacks on civilian infrastructure. The idea that they're still trying to propose that this is some kind of attack on Hamas or war against Hamas is absurd. So they've been telling people to go south, and now the last place in Rafah, in the crossing, now they're starting to go into Rafah and attack Rafah. Here's a CBS News piece on it.
Middle East, Israel is launching strikes on the last major Hamas stronghold in the city of Rafah.
I thought it was in the north.
Those actions coming as President Biden is pushing back on Israel's attacks. Chris Mitchell brings us the story from Jerusalem.
In his harshest criticism yet, President Biden slammed Israel's military campaign in his press conference Thursday night.
I'm of the view, as you know, that the conduct of the response in Gaza, in the Gaza Strip, has been over the top.
Yeah, the Biden slammed Netanyahu, his harshest statements to this date. This is their operation. They have funded this. They've given Israel everything that they asked for along the way. They're giving them the bombs that they're using to do it. They've fully supported them every step of the way. They have not done anything meaningful to stop the violence. And so look at just two things already in this clip. What the hell is CBN News? Oh, this is some like, is this? I thought it was CBS, and it's some kind of like Christian news thing. Sorry. Still, just like pointing out what they're doing though in this piece. Though number one is saying Israel attacking Hamas in Rafah, and Joe Biden slamming their strategy. Excuse me. Well, see, I don't know. It says hashtag Christian news. It says hashtag breaking news, political news, hashtag Christian news. Let me see if I can get like a more of a mainstream. Here's 1 hour ago from ABC. Israeli plans to evacuate Rafah ahead of ground invasion of the city. And that's like, again, that's whitewashing the genocide, whitewashing the ethnic cleansing. Oh, don't worry, we're going to evacuate Rafah. To where? You've pushed people all the way to the south and like, oh, we're doing you a favor by evacuating you the fuck out of Palestine forever. You're welcome. We're evacuating you. This is how the media manufactures consent for and whitewashes genocide and ethnic cleansing.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he's ordered the IDF to come up with a dual plan to evacuate Gaza's southern town of Rafah as Israel prepares for a ground invasion of the city. This comes as White House officials say the U.S. won't support Israel sending its troops in if it doesn't consider the impact to civilians.
How will they not support them?
As you know.
And you know what? All Israel has is, well, we're considering the impact to civilians. And then the U.S. will say, okay, well, good. This idea that they're not going to support, oh, no, this is too far. We're not going to support this. What are you doing to stop it?
The conduct.
Mexico will let them in. Sisi was told by Biden to let them into Mexico. Okay, good. Thankfully.
In the Gaza Strip has been over the top, and it's got to stop.
Foreign correspondent James Longman joins me now from Tel Aviv with more on this. James, Israel says the
so this is what the media is doing, though, on two levels, right? It's legitimizing Israel's actions, and it's framing the Biden administration as being somehow like oppositional to this.
Evacuation needs to happen before disbanding the Hamas battalions allegedly located there. Now, many of the Gazans in Rafah say
allegedly located there, just like they were allegedly located under the hospital and the vast network of tunnels. Like how many more incidents do we need for our beautiful free news media is going to say like not to immediately believe when they make these kind of allegations about where Hamas is and isn't. When they've killed 30,000 people, over 30,000 people, and like a handful of Hamas people, militants, how are you still accepting this framing? Israel says it will come up with a plan to evacuate civilians in Rafah. Yeah, it's to leave Palestine. And this is what certain people don't seem to understand. Oh, it's not genocide. They could genocide everyone in Palestine if they wanted to right away. They could genocide all of Gaza right away. It's not genocide. Yeah, it is, though, when not only are you killing tens of thousands of people, not only are you bombing mosques and destroying mosques and schools and cultural centers, killing artists and poets and teachers, doctors, nurses, but also ethnically and civilian infrastructure and ethnically cleansing the area. Yes, it is genocide.
To get away from the fighting
and churches as well
in the region. So how realistic is it for the estimated 1.5 million people there to now leave?
Yeah, Dan, it remains really unclear. Palestinians
no
say
shit.
This is not evacuation, this is forced displacement. Where would they go? Where else in Gaza? Much of the rest of the Gaza Strip has been almost entirely obliterated. There are refugee camps, but they are not safe. Just today, Hamas says 15 people were killed in the Rafah area alone from airstrikes. So yes, Rafah has been this area of shelter for months now, but it hasn't been outside of the conflict. It's also been a dangerous place, but from the sky. Now, the danger, I think people in that city very much feel, could come from the ground, could come from some kind of ground incursion. And yes, Benjamin Netanyahu is talking about the chance to evacuate, but where exactly to? Inside Gaza or out of Gaza? And that is an incredibly touchy subject. There are people here in Israel who say that Palestinians, they could come up with a plan to get them to leave Gaza, to go to other Arab states. This is massively controversial in a conflict which is all about competing claims to land. And every time we talk to Palestinians, when we get the chance inside Gaza, of course, we can't go to where they are because Israel doesn't allow us, but when we're able to speak to them on the phone, and about their plans for the future, if there is one, they all say they are not going anywhere. Even if their homes are destroyed, they do not want to leave Gaza. They feel very strongly about that. So yes, Benjamin Netanyahu has spoken about this plan for an evacuation, but it remains unclear just exactly where all these people can go. 1.2 up to 1.5 million people. Rafah, the population of Rafah has grown 6 times during the course of just 4 months. Diane?
Wow. James, UNICEF also says thousands more could die if fighting escalates in Rafah. How dire is the situation there right now?
Leave or die is a very interesting kind of plan.
The Refugee Council has said that this is the largest displacement camp in the world. People don't have regular access to running water, to food, to sanitation. There are areas where the Israeli forces have been telling civilians to go to escape fighting all through for the last 4 months. They've given them zones where they say they're able to go. The method of communication has been difficult. A lot of the time they're asked to log on to a screen and it's a QR code they're asked to scan, well, in a place where you can't really get much power. A lot of people's phones won't be working. There's very little internet connection. That's difficult enough as it is. But once they have made their way to these places, often there's no sanitation. We're told stories of hundreds of people using one toilet, that it's very difficult to get the right amount of food for children, that prices inside Gaza have skyrocketed just because there is so little getting in. And we know there are aid trucks. There's been big conversations around how many aid trucks can get in. Even on a day when 80, 100 aid trucks get into Gaza, that is just a drop in the ocean for the sheer amount of need that is there. Remember,
and you have Israeli settlers blocking the aid trucks from getting in, sanctioned by the state, sanctioned by the government.
And James,
and the U.S. cutting UNRWA, which distributes the aid.
News Netanyahu will likely send negotiators to Cairo in the next few days. So where do ceasefire deal and hostage negotiations currently stand?
Well, when Benjamin Netanyahu the other day rejected Hamas's counter proposal, he said that it was delusional. He said that there was no way that he could allow Hamas to remain in Gaza. It felt like a deal was dead. But Anthony Blinken, Secretary of State, was here and he said, look, Netanyahu hasn't completely closed the door on a deal. There is still space for an agreement and a lot of pressure inside Israel on the government to try to get
there's still a chance. No, I think he's still open. I think Netanyahu's still open.
Perhaps they did feel that they were on the edge of something, but if we're not back at square one, we're very close to it. It is clearly a race against time for these hostages, up to 30 of whom we understand have already died in captivity. Diane?
All right, foreign
Killed by
correspondent
who?
James Longman in Tel Aviv. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube.
Okay, so I'm going to have to subject you folks to some really stupid and maddening shit. I'm going to have to. And as you know, there's certain individuals that I don't really like talking about that much. You know, certain individuals that have come after me on a number of occasions who have asked me to appear on their streams to debate them about various topics, who seem to have a weird, like, kind of sick obsession with me sometimes. I don't know what's behind that. I don't understand it. But I just want to look at this. I want to look at this to see, like, what we're dealing with here. In terms of some of the debate bro liberal analysts on this platform. This whole thing right now that I'm about to show you is like a Russian nesting doll of just utter stupidity. And yes, it's Mr. Destiny. And that's the thing. He says if Israel wanted to genocide Palestinians, then they would only exist in history books. So again, like we talked about, genocide, this idea. It's not just about wiping out a people, even though like they are indeed doing that. Like the scale of mass killing that we've seen over the last few months is like unheard of. It's one of the most depraved, horrendous things that we've seen in our lifetimes. Over 10,000 kids, or 12,000 at this point. 12,000 little kids. Over 30,000 people in 4 months. But again, it's not just about killing people. It's not just about wiping out human beings. That's a big part of it, obviously. But again, destroying schools, hospitals, destroying cultural touchstones, mosques and churches, killing artists and poets and authors, teachers, doctors and nurses, journalists, It's trying to wipe out a culture. It's trying to wipe out a people. And if we're going to kill tens of thousands of them, we're going to push tens of thousands of them out of their land and never let them return. And we're going to do everything we can to destroy these important, like, cultural touchstones. And digging up cemeteries, yes. Destroying water infrastructure, digging up olive trees and olive groves. And anyway, this just gets dumber and dumber. This is one of the dumbest arguments that I think I've ever seen play out. And we have Mehdi Hassan, who somehow takes this fucking ridiculous genocidal take by Mr. Destiny, aka Steven, and somehow just contributes nothing to it and actually makes it even worse. And says, per this argument, China isn't guilty of genocide in Xinjiang because Uyghurs still exist. Same with Russia and Ukraine. And yes, actually, no. China isn't guilty of genocide in Xinjiang. Not for any of these reasons, nor is Russia guilty of genocide in Ukraine. Who actually thinks that still? How is this your argument about this? Rather than mentioning all the evidence of genocide that exists, that we just talked about, that the ICJ has talked about. And Mehdi spins this to be like, no, China is also doing genocide and Russia is also doing genocide. But wait, it gets dumber. Mr. Destiny responds. And he says, China is guilty of genocide because they are intentionally trying to eliminate a group of people, and it shows. There is no evidence of Israel doing this to Palestinians today. Death tolls in an active war don't count, he says. Which is Holocaust denial, by the way. Death tolls in an active war just don't count, apparently, according to who? Well, this former StarCraft streamer. He's decided. So China, let's really get this straight. The country that has been keeping people in an open air concentration camp for the last 20 years, that regularly bombs these people, that regularly targets civilians, doctors, nurses, journalists, children with sniper fire, murdering or deliberately maiming them. The country that has killed over 30,000 people in the last 4 months, using advanced weaponry, the most advanced military, one of the most advanced militaries that exists in the world, armed and fully funded by the United States of America and Canada, who have destroyed mosques, churches, schools, aid distribution networks, blocking humanitarian aid, destroying hospitals, taking hostages and torturing them, putting people in soccer stadiums and stripping them to their underwear, putting numbers on them to keep tracks of them. So they're not doing genocide. And the country that is doing genocide are the ones that have invested billions of dollars into instead of destroying the infrastructure, they're building infrastructure. The ones who have not bombed a single country or a single person. The country that did oversee this like counterterrorism strategy that involved putting people in these vocational schools, whether they wanted to be there or not. And we can debate whether that's a human rights abuse or not. We've talked about that a lot. China certainly came down with a heavy hand to deal with the terrorism issue in that population, and the separatism issue came down with a very heavy hand. We can have that debate. But that, according to Stephen, which isn't even happening anymore, that AP article that came out where they went to Xinjiang and looked around and said, hey, all these like vocational schools and scary concentration camps aren't even in operation anymore. That was like 2 years ago. And according to Mr. Destiny, that's the country that's committing genocide, while Israel is just fighting Hamas. And death tolls in an active war don't count, in addition to all the other activities that they're engaged in right now, including forcibly evacuating people from Palestine, never to let them return. And what is it like? They're intentionally trying to eliminate a group of people, and it shows. But it shows how? That's my question, Mr. Evidence, Mr. Like factual. What Wikipedia article are you referencing here? How are they intentionally trying to eliminate a group of people? I'm confused by this. Again, any one of us can go to Xinjiang right now. There's mosques, there's culture, there's Uyghur culture, there's thriving community events, festivals. Like there's people like because of the economic investment that's gone on, there's people that have jobs of all ethnic groups, Uyghur ethnic groups and other ethnic groups that live in that region. Like we talked about, for most people that live in that region, no matter what ethnic group they belong to, their life has gotten better over the last 10, 20 years because of the level of investment that's happened. And according to Mr. Destiny, that's a genocide. According to Mr. Destiny, that constitutes them intentionally trying to eliminate a group of people. And it shows how? I don't know. I don't know how it shows that. And 30,000 plus people killed, murdered in 4 months. And there's just no evidence of that. And all the infrastructure and the forced expulsion, ethnic cleansing, like that's fucking genocide. They put Uyghur language on the Yan, sort of the opposite of erasing it. And there's like Uyghur language TV stations and massive celebrities, movie stars. Yeah, if they're digging up cemeteries, torching court records, burning libraries, bombing mosques, wiping out entire bloodlines, entire families, murdering little kids, plus the lack of food, water, power, and medicine specifically cut off by Israel, and intentionally cut off humanitarian aid, intentionally cut off by Israeli settlers right now. To say nothing of UNRWA, like we were talking about, which distributes the humanitarian aid. It's the only institution that's able to distribute that humanitarian aid, has always been a target of Israel, and they've now convinced the US and Canada and other Western countries to slash their funding. And that's not genocide, but what China's doing is. That is amazing to me, actually. That's actually amazing. I'm really glad that this person has the platform that they have. No, that's great. And listen, I'll give you an example of the doublethink here. The doublethink on display. Like, I'm genuinely confused, or I'm not confused. I think I actually do get it. But it's amazing to hold these two thoughts in your mind at the same time. This is how you have to be a brilliant brain genius, like Mr. Destiny. He says, spoiler alert, even killing civilians isn't a war crime. You know nothing, dipshit. Fuck off with the fake outrage. Some guy that he's quote tweeting here. Even killing civilians isn't a war crime. Well, listen, I didn't know that based tanky Mr. Destiny was in the Hamas did nothing wrong camp. You know, that to me is a little extreme for me. I've talked about the context of that kind of violence. I've talked about October 7th and the narrative of that I think has been challenged and debunked a lot. That to me is a little bit too far for Mr. Destiny to say that Hamas did nothing wrong on October 7th. But hey, if he wants to go and put that out there, you know, that's his prerogative. We still have a free exchange of ideas. We have a marketplace of ideas in our society. Like, isn't it weird who has just blanket approval and the ability to kill civilians without any repercussions, not even to be accused, let alone of genocide, but even war crimes? And when you're allowed to do that and when you're not allowed to, and who's allowed to do it and who's not allowed to. Yeah, I think we should probably draw a line as specifically targeting civilians and civilian infrastructure, Mr. Destiny. I agree, but apparently for him that's not necessary. And again, and then he accuses in the same day, the same hour, accuses China of doing genocide, who have killed nobody, who have invaded nobody, who have bombed nobody, who had a terrorism problem and a separatism problem that people were dying in these terrorist attacks, including Uyghur Muslims were being killed in these terrorist attacks, and responded to that with investment in infrastructure, jobs, vocational training. Did they come down with a heavy hand? Absolutely. I don't think there's any denying that. But that, according to Mr. Destiny, is genocide. And he's outright excusing killing civilians and suggesting that Israel is not guilty of the same, even with the ICJ ruling. The line we're learning here is what I like is good, what you like is bad, no other evidence, no other facts, not even acknowledgement of basic humanity on any level. Yeah, this take makes the people that I don't like online upset, so I must be right, and I must continue to say this kind of thing. Like I was saying a couple weeks ago, the last time this fucking guy came up, when there was that phony image of a burned baby, which was proven, lo and behold, to be yet another hoax. But there's this phony image of a burned baby going around. Ben Shapiro was sharing it, and others were sharing it. And I saw him taking a Palestinian activist, and they're taking their tweet and photoshopping it onto an image of a burned baby corpse. And at that point, it's you don't care. You don't care about anything. You don't actually care about Israelis or Palestinians. You don't care about anything at all. You're just a purely nihilistic sociopath at that point. And here's what it comes down to. This person who has an EU flag, so probably not someone that I would agree with on a whole lot, says, what is the legitimate military aim here that makes the civilian casualties justified and proportional to the action's military objective? And he says, the elimination of Hamas. So as long as they're trying to eliminate Hamas, it's all fair game. All the civilian infrastructure, the mosques, the churches, the hospitals, the schools, the tens of thousands of little kids, little babies being killed. Over 30,000 people. As long as it's being done with the efforts of the elimination of Hamas, then it's all good. Who's committed more violence over the years? Who's committed more terrorism over the years? Is it the IDF or Hamas? What's the body count? Who's destroyed more infrastructure? Who's killed more civilians and little kids? The IDF or Hamas? Because if it's the IDF, then, according to this man, and again, I don't agree with this, according to this guy, then there's no limit on the violence that a Palestinian resistance group could use to eliminate the IDF. The IDF, a brutal, violent terrorist organization that bombs and murders people routinely, that kills little kids routinely, that takes hostages and sexually tortures people in prisons. There's no amount of civilian deaths that would impede the ability of a resistance group to remove this organization, this evil organization. Unless, of course, skin color played a role in their assessment. But it's not even about skin color. It's about who's a friend to the United States empire and who's not. You know? Because again, if you want to talk about China and Xinjiang and the Uyghurs, that whole process was put in place to go after these like separatist terrorist groups who were killing civilians. So what China put in place to eliminate these groups and eliminate this kind of like terrorist ideology is not justified, but bombing and murdering 30,000 people, or the tens of thousands of people over the years and decades, more than that, is justified. And one of these is genocide and one of them is not. US-backed separatists. Yeah, and I would wonder why he supports these US-backed separatists that were committing terrorist attacks in Xinjiang and killing innocent people. Why does he support them? Why does he support terrorism? Either the terrorism of those separatists or the terrorism of the IDF or the terrorism of the United States government. Yeah, and like Irate Lump, I think you answered Joe's question there ahead of time. Once it's not even about skin color. It's one side is coded white while the other side is coded brown. One side has the protections of being under that umbrella of whiteness, and one side does not. And you can make the same case about Ukraine and Russia as well. It's not even about the actual skin pigmentation. It's who's allowed to get the protection of this kind of designation. No, I know Emperor's New Groove. He's just a sick person. He's a sick person. He's a sick person. He's an apologist for empire and the grotesque crimes of the United States empire. And listen, if you think all civilian casualties are totally justified, eliminating a group like Hamas, I hate to tell you what's going to be justified to fight back against not only the IDF, but the United States military. Guess who's responsible for more death and destruction and violence? Is it Hamas, or is it the IDF, or the US military? If you think civilian casualties are totally acceptable in the quest to eliminate a group like Hamas, I don't know what you think about what is going to be acceptable when it comes to civilian casualties in America and Canada and Western countries. Infinite something, something, something. Yeah. Curious if you think Taiwanese are coded as white. My gut says no. No, but like you still have like non-white proxy states. Like whether it's Japan, whether it's South Korea, whether it's Taiwan, you know? They're not coded as white, but they still have that protection because they're acting as proxies for the white Western countries. Anyway, Just a sick person. Sick person and about 1/10 as smart as he thinks he is. And 1/10 is being generous. And if you're watching this, Stephen, I'm still not going to debate you. I still have no interest in talking to you. Stop asking. I think we got to look at this as well.
And 36.
I think we got to look at this as well. And this is a problem with both, with AOC and with Bernie right now. Both AOC and Bernie are out there like trying to talk about the violence, trying to talk about how horrible it is. And at the same time, I'm sorry, but it's incoherent. No matter how much effort you're putting to talk about the crimes of Israel, it's fucking incoherent to pivot from talking about how horrible Israel is to and vote for Joe Biden, which both of them are trying to do.
More than 1,200 Israelis were killed on October 7th.
And that's not even true. Again, this is from February 6th. What is the excuse now? Like, even by Israel's own numbers, Bernie's doing the same thing. 1,200 Israelis killed. They're still using that number. That number hasn't been correct for like 2 months. You're leading with a lie. To not even get into the whole like Hannibal directive shit, the Apache helicopters and the tank crews and in the kibbutzes and stuff like that, IDF crossfire, any of that. You're still leading with the completely debunked and out-of-date number and suggesting that 1,200 civilians were killed. That's what she's doing there. And that's how you have to justify. You have to lead with the Israeli victimhood narrative, and then you can talk about the crimes of Israel.
And 136 remain hostage. In response, 27,478 Palestinians
Like,
have
you've
been
already
killed. 70%
undercut your
of
own
whom
argument.
are women and children. And most Gazans today cannot reach a fully functioning hospital. This is not war. This is slaughter. And yet, after all this destruction and devastation, the Netanyahu government is still nowhere close to their stated objective of destroying Hamas. Moreover, the United States has our own requirements outlining the transfer of weapons to forces engaged in gross human rights violations. We have a responsibility to honor those laws, to facilitate a bilateral ceasefire, to move to end
They're going in and shooting doctors in ORs.
casualty and loss of life that risk bringing the entire region closer to a wider, deadlier conflict. This bill contains $17 billion on top of the billions we already transfer every year with no conditions and no humanitarian aid for the most vulnerable. Everyday Americans should not tolerate this squandering of our resources without oversight
And vote for Joe Biden.
inhumane and ineffective operation, especially when we are living paycheck to paycheck and they cannot see their Congress address their most basic material
And this November, you got to vote
concerns.
for
I yield
Joe
back.
Brandon. Like, it's you can't have these are mutually exclusive. These are mutually exclusive ideas. Vexing Thoughts, Twitch seems bugged, but I see people are still in the chat, so I'm just going with it. Is she going to mention the total defunding of UNRWA? I think she has mentioned it. But the thing is, you can't mention that and not mention who's doing it, and then encourage people to vote for the people that is doing the thing that you're saying is bad. Bernie did the same thing. He was on like one of those late night talk show hosts, one of those late night talk shows, like last night. and he's talking about all the violence, and he's talking about what Israel's doing and how horrible it is. And then in the same interview, they're like, now pitch people on why you need to vote for Joe Biden. And he just immediately does it. Like, that does not make sense. I'm sorry, that does not make sense. There's no difference between good and bad things energy. Let's see what else we have here.
Israel's war on Gaza is set to shape an event.
Here's Al Jazeera talking about how this is going to impact the election.
America's race for president. Joe Biden's unconditional support for Israel has alienated constituents in key areas of the country. The question is, will voters abandon Biden in November? I'm Annalise Borges, and this is The Stream.
And folks, we're watching Al Jazeera, the stream, but if you want to support this stream before we watch this clip and you enjoy this channel, I don't have quite the same levels of support as some of the dumb, genocidal fucking freaks that we've talked about on this platform. But I do have you, the beautiful viewers and listeners and chatters of this stream. So if you want to please support the work that I do on here, if it's been valuable to you in some way, if you appreciate what I do on here on twitch.tv every single day, please subscribe if you can. Okay? It is $5 per month to subscribe. It really supports me. It helps me keep this show on the air. You get all the tiny little images. You support the work that I do on here. You support the community. And I appreciate it a lot.
Use the computer to mark up the size of the account.
Love your work, Mr. Russet.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Bio, thank you very much. Thank you for the gifted sub. Do we have any other takers? Rob isn't a knuckle-dragging genocide supporter. Please sub. What an endorsement. What a ringing endorsement.
You've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
Burgles, thank you so much. Burgles, I really appreciate the support lately. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you for the 5 gifted subs. Thank you for that. Are there any other takers? Does anyone else want to support this program? Literally one person could not only trigger one of the coolest
you can
alerts.
Count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all
one
this.
Of the coolest alerts, the elite exclusive 20 sub alert, but could instantly get across the finish line. Instantly get across the sub goal. Diego, thank you for the gifted sub as well. And if you get to 50, I have to sing. What is that? How many is that to go? 34. I'm not feeling too good about that, personally, but that's okay, because I don't, it freaks me out to have to do that, so that's not a problem.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
I hate when that happens, actually. Ms. Squatch, thank you very much. Thanks so much for the 25 months of Tier 1. I appreciate you, Ms. Squatch. Thank you. And RIP to, once again, to Snacks. Beloved official pet of the TRRS community. Rest in paradise. So we do have a little hype train going now, folks. We do have a little hype train. 18 subs to go to get to the goal. Do we have any other takers? 88% of the way through this level 2. Should be one more sub would get across to level 3. One more sub would get us to level 3. And we're 18 away from the goal.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Anon, thank you so much for the gifted sub. I appreciate you, Anon. Thank you. Only 17 itty-bitty, measly subs to go.
You've just become an elite member
of
the Friendship
Burgles.
Triangle.
Burgles, oh my gosh. I really appreciate all the support, Burgles. Thanks for another 5 gifted subs. It's me, your only viewer. For months, I've created the illusion that you're streaming to a large audience, but here's the truth. All these people in the chat are me. And now for you to be convinced of this, I will send this message from all my accounts. Okay. And wait for those to come through. It's forever a mystery, HTA. That's why the non-gifters are the most Christ-like of all gifters, because they're not about they don't want the credit. They don't want the credit. They don't want the accolades. It seems like you already have a sub, Devin. Look at that. There it is. Wow.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
This entire last 3 years has just been some social experiment to convince you that you have an audience of people online. The experiment has now concluded. And we made it to level 3. Hell yeah.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Anon, thank you for the 3 gifted subs. Another Christ-like anonymous gifter.
You can count on me.
Thank you,
You're gonna
Anon.
have good old Rob to talk you through all this. You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Thank you, Anon. And now we're only 8 subs away. We're only 8 subs from the goal, folks. That's so close. It's within reach now. It's within grasp. A chorus effect going on with the sub notification. So if you get some more, I can continue to do it. I can feel
You've
it.
just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
Sunny Sola. Good Lord. Thanks for the 6 gifted subs, Sunny Sola. I really, really appreciate all the support, Sunny Sola. Thank you for that.
You can count on me. You're
going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this. Thank you, Canceling Culture, as well. 3 months of Tier 1 from Canceling Culture. The only viewer is coming up big. That's it. I may only have 1 viewer, but they're very generous.
You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Thanks for being the soundtrack to my work days. It's my greatest pleasure. It's the greatest pleasure of my life. Maybe not the greatest, but it's up there. In terms of pleasures, it's up there. It's one of the best. Thank you, Bleep Lord, as well, for the gifted sub. Hell yeah, Bleep Lord, thank you for the gifted sub. I really appreciate that. Number 1, having your son, to being our streamer. There we go. There we go. And we have hit the goal, which is absolutely wonderful. We still do have about 3 minutes and 50 seconds left in this hype train. And we are 15 subs away from a little Friday sing-along. That is true. we're 15 subs away from a little song. And obviously we won't get to that. Obviously we won't get there. But, we made it this far. That's the important thing. And we will not be making it to 50
you can
subs.
Count on me. You're gonna have good old.
There'll be no
Rob
songs
to,
being
talk you
sung.
through all this.
Old Dutch, thank you for the gifted sub. I appreciate you, Old Dutch. Thank you. Oh, wonderful. What a wonderful community this is. This wonderful community of one person. This wonderful, wonderful community of one person supporting me on here. Close personal friend of the show, O.J. Simpson has cancer. It's been announced. All the greats are dropping like flies lately. The King, O.J. Simpson, but I repeat myself. I'm just joking. So I'm just going to let this minute and 50 run off the clock. I'm going to let this minute 50 run off the clock. And there's going to be no singing. There's going to be none of that stuff going on.
Welcome to...
It's OJ's fault we have the Kardashians. It's true, yeah.
This is...
Queuing up another clip here.
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Only Fact, thank you very much for the gifted sub. I appreciate you, Only Fact. Thank you. Gonna run out the clock. 30 seconds to go. I'm gonna finish this up. And will not be singing any songs. I think that's the most important thing. Okay. Thanks to the chat. Thanks to the community. However many of you there are.
Have good old Rob to
Oh,
talk
Dummy
you through
Dorko,
all
thanks
this.
for another gifted sub. Thank you, Dummy Dorko. That's very kind of you. Thank you for that. Really appreciate you, chat. Even if there's just one of you. If it's just one person, you're doing a great job at both keeping me engaged with all kinds of different chat messages and also financially supporting this stream as well. So I can't really complain, can I? Anyway, I was going to look at that Al Jazeera clip.
You've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
Vargas, thanks so much for the 5 gifted subs. Thank you, Vargas. I thought this would be good as well, though, because this is a segment from Democracy Now! Like, we're talking about, Biden and the impact that it's going to have on them. And this is a segment with Bree Newsom, who is like, I think she's great, and took a lot of criticism a few weeks ago for suggesting that that America already was a fascist dictatorship, and all these like pundits. Actually, ma'am, we can't be a fascist dictatorship because blah, 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 reasons. To say, like, let's ignore the vast network of institutionalized, industrialized prison system, the largest such barbaric prison system in the entire world to this day, the institutionalized slave labor, the armed agents of the state shooting people in the street.
You've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
We have elections where we can choose between two different representatives of the capitalist class. Of course we can. My life is great. Of course, how could we be a fascist dictatorship? My life is great. Oh, that's cool, Blueberry. And thank you, Kijiji Genie, as well, for the 5 gifted subs. Thank you, Kijiji Genie. I really appreciate that. And that's good now. That's enough. We count prisoners in the electorate, but they cannot vote. It's very democratic. Yeah. To say nothing of the brutal violence and fascism that America exports around the world. Like, we're just talking about domestically. Anyway, I thought Bree Newsom was absolutely correct to say that. The people in the, media commentariat class that criticized her over that are fucking have their heads entirely up their asses and are actually stenographers for the fascist ruling class of the United States. How can we have a fascist dictatorship if that hurts my feelings? That's the question. I benefit from all the plunder. What's the issue here? So let's look at this. Let's look at this information with Bree Newsom on this.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Thank you, Barbara, for the gifted sub as well. And I think it's good now. I think we're all right. Let's move on with this segment now.
This is Democracy
You can count
Now!,
on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Sing, please.
With Juan Gonzalez. We turn now to South Carolina.
Thank you, Quaker Oats
where
Guy.
President Biden delivered his second campaign speech of the year at the historic Mother Emanuel AME
Thank you,
Church
Quaker
in
Oats Guy, for the
South
gifted
Carolina,
sub.
Carolina, where in 2015, 8 black parishioners and their pastor were shot
I'm actually
dead
not
by
doing a
white
bit.
supremacist.
Like, I know I kind of do a bit sometimes where I was like, oh no, don't subscribe, that kind of thing. But like, I genuinely really did not want to, like, I genuinely did not want to get to that point. Like, I really genuinely do not want to have to do that. People are saying ELO. I don't know if I ever agreed to that, but I don't hate the idea of ELO. But I guess we're doing that. I really wanted to try and avoid it genuinely. But
Biden remembered the victims.
On June 17, 2015, the beautiful souls, 5 survivors, invited a stranger into this church to pray with them. The word of God was pierced by bullets and hate, of rage.
Oh yeah, the anti-genocide protesters were racist for interrupting him.
Poison that has for too long haunted this nation.
I only know the evil woman chorus, though. That's the problem, Dr. Maggot.
White supremacy. Oh, it is. It's a poison. Throughout our history, it's ripped this nation apart. This has no place in America. Not today, tomorrow, or ever.
As he
That's all right.
As he spoke, Biden was disrupted by activists demanding a Gaza ceasefire.
These racist activists that don't want Joe Brandon to use this platform to campaign when he's doing genocide.
As the protesters were removed from the church, supporters of President Biden
They're
began
racist
chanting
against
for more
Irish
years.
Americans.
He addressed the protesters.
Unbelievable.
I understand their passion, and I've been quietly working.
I've been quietly working.
With the
You
Israeli
motherfucker.
government to get them to reduce and significantly get out.
Yeah, you're doing a great
Gaza.
job, sir.
I'm using all that I can to do that.
You're doing a fantastic job at reducing
naming
the
Donald
violence
Trump,
and the
Biden
casualties.
blasted the former
No, great job.
president and leading 2024 Republican candidate as a loser who tried to overthrow the 2020 election results by urging his supporters to storm the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. A number carried Confederate flags and wore white supremacists and far-right symbols. Following the massacre at the Emanuel AME Church in 2015,
I'll just be right back, folks.
following
I'll be right back. Just got to go to the bathroom.
mass funeral at the University of Charleston Arena that thousands came out for. Our next guest, Bree Newsome-Bass, scaled the 30-foot flagpole at the South Carolina state capitol and removed the Confederate flag. As police officers shouted at her to come down, she shimmied to the top of the flagpole, took the flag in her hand and said, "You come against me with hatred, I come against you in the name of God. This flag comes down today."
You come against me with hatred and oppression and violence. I come against you in the name of God. This flag comes down today.
While Bree Newsome was arrested, along with an ally, it was only after this action that the Confederate flag was formally removed from the South Carolina State House grounds. Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley was governor of South Carolina at the time. She has faced fresh backlash after she didn't mention slavery when asked about the cause of the U.S. Civil War during a recent town hall in New Hampshire. Well, for more, we're joined in Raleigh, North Carolina by Bree Newsome-Bass, artist, anti-racist activist. Bree, welcome back to Democracy Now! This certainly does take us back. As people debate whether it was Nikki Haley who ultimately forced the flag to come down, we're going to the woman who actually took it down and risked your freedom to do it. Talk about why you did that then. Ultimately, the legislature would vote to take it down, and how you feel about what's happening today.
Yes, and thank you again so much for having me on. You know, I want to make it clear, yes, I did scale the pole and take the Confederate flag down. This was an issue that people had been protesting for years and years and years. And that's part of what made it so egregious in 2015 when we had the massacre at Emanuel AME and South Carolina refused to lower the flag, because part of the reason why they were refusing to lower the flag is that they had passed a law in the year 2000 saying that it couldn't be lowered for any reason after they moved it from the Capitol Dome to the flagpole on the lawn where it was at the time that I took it down. So this had been going on for years and years and years. And Nikki Haley actually opposed.
I know I'm muted. No, I was just saying to Sharpie Diesel, there's plenty of women of color in the Biden administration right now, so I get the sentiment, but it would entirely depend on the political characteristics of what that would be. Having people of color in these institutions isn't enough, because we've seen women of color like Karine Jean-Pierre as the press secretary for Biden. She's overseeing it and justifying a mass murder campaign right now. And she's Haitian, and the Biden administration has been specifically cruel to Haitian migrants, you know? So, unfortunately, that's not ever going to be enough. I do get the sentiment, though.
Taking the flag down right up until those massacres occurred, and the mounting political protest and the pressure made it where she basically had to, at that point, support the flag coming down. So ideologically, she has never really had this stance of being opposed to either the Confederacy or
we got another woman of color right there.
Confederacy, and certainly not opposed to racist policy. She went right from the governorship to serving in the Trump administration, and she's had a number of incidents over the years where the things that she says or the things that she does directly contradict with her, her claim of having led the way on taking the Confederate flag down. At one of her recent rallies, she played that song, Find Out in a Small Town, the song that people really raised a lot of concern about because it was obviously alluding to sundown towns and the racial violence that Black people have experienced here for decades and decades and decades. So this is not new for Nikki Haley. It just shows that she does not really represent anti-racism in any real way.
And Bree, I'd like to ask you, in response to President Biden's speech, you posted on social media, quote, how the Black church is used as a prop for white politicians actually proves the point that racism is alive and well and strong. Could you expand on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I think that The whole way that the incidents in 2015, both the massacre at Emanuel AME, the refocus on the Confederate flag there in South Carolina, the formal ceremony around taking the flag down, and the way that American politics returns to those moments again and again and again speaks to how relevant it still is. The fact that Black churches are frequently used as, political campaign stops for politicians. In this case with Joe Biden, he is clearly trying to make an appeal, not just to Black voters, but really trying to fend off criticism that he is racist, that he is sponsoring a genocide. And that criticism is completely well-founded because he is sponsoring a genocide. And genocide is the most extreme form of racial violence that there is. And so to use the pulpit at Emanuel AME in this manner, to make it a prop essentially for Joe Biden's re-election bid, to me is the greatest assault on truth. I know Joe Biden stood there in the pulpit and said that there is an assault on truth that's happening right now. Joe Biden is in many ways leading that assault. And I
thought that was great. Only fact I saw that.
Trump, who we know is also a serial liar, but Donald Trump is not the one who is currently in office right now. It is Joe Biden. And this effort to use the church, not just the Black church, but the site of racial violence, of a mass murder, to deflect from the fact that Joe Biden himself is bombing churches, bombing mosques, bombing places of
but he's
worship,
trying
and
to stop it,
murdering
though.
Many civilians, people.
Does
who
anyone
have
actually
sought
believe
shelter
that?
in those places? It just exposes the complete hypocrisy of this entire situation and the vacuum of moral leadership at the top. And that's why I took offense to it. I think that's why many people who watched it took offense to it. I'm very glad that the young people stood up and protested, because even though they were few in that audience, they represented the majority of people worldwide.
It's interesting, Bree. The polls that have just come out today indicate that Nikki Haley is surging in the polls in New Hampshire. You referenced where she stood on the Confederate flag. I wanted to go back to 2014, when then South Carolina Republican Governor Nikki Haley
She really
suggested
surged.
South Carolina had resolved its image problem, and that
It was
having
entirely
the
a
Confederate
media
flag
creation.
at the State House was fine, because not a single CEO.
Yeah, I
had
actually did
complained.
not realize
She was
until right now,
speaking
Paul,
at a
that this is
gubernatorial
from a month ago.
You know, the Confederate flag is a very sensitive issue. And what I can tell you is over the last 3.5 years, I spend a lot of my days on the phones with CEOs and recruiting jobs to this state. I can honestly say I have not had one conversation with a single CEO about the Confederate flag. What is important here is that we look at the fact that, yes, perception of South Carolina matters. That's why we have everybody answering the phones. It's a great day in South Carolina. That's why we're being named the friendliest state and the most patriotic state and getting all these great accolades. But we really kind of fixed all that when you elected the first Indian American female governor, when we appointed the first African American U.S. senator.
That was Nikki Haley.
Yeah, she's Indian American, but she goes by Nikki Haley.
Bree Newsom-Bass.
He doesn't
your
exactly lead
final
with
comment.
that.
I mean, I think that says it all, right? So first of all, she's saying that it's okay. The optics are okay, right? We're not talking about the substance. We're not talking about the experience. We're not talking about whether people are actually experiencing equal treatment under the law, just the optics. So the optics are fine because it's not disrupting business, right? And then the other thing that she offers as evidence that everything is okay is the fact that she's non-white. She is an Indian American woman, and then she points to other people in the administration, excuse me, who are non-white. Well, that's the entire problem right there. The idea is that so long as we can keep business going as usual, it
Yeah, that was
doesn't
her
matter
voters
that there's
heard that and were
violence,
like,
it
"What?
doesn't matter that there's racism.
What do you mean?"
All that matters is the optics. And that is what Nikki Haley's campaign represents in her falsely claiming that she led the way on taking the Confederate flag down. That's what Joe Biden's campaign represents in terms of thinking that all that matters is giving a speech at a church and ignoring all of the churches that are being blown up and all of the the Palestinians that are being killed, ignore the fact that young people are demanding a future, and we have people who are older who don't seem to care at all, that this assault in Palestine is disproportionately affecting children or killing children. And then in the case of Nikki Haley, again, she does not truly represent any of the things that she is claiming when it comes to being anti-racist. You can say whatever words you want to say, you can put together whatever kind of events you want to put together, but the fact is that the truth is going to be the truth. We see what is actually happening, and I support all of the disruptions because the last thing that we need is to carry on business as usual when our democracy is absolutely under attack. Democracy is under attack worldwide. And genocide is the most extreme form of racial violence that there is. So there's no way that we are fighting white supremacy simply by taking down a flag or having an event at Emmanuel AME in the midst of genocide, in the midst of doing away with affirmative action, voting rights, the attack on abortion rights. This is where we are at. It's a very dangerous place, and I hope that people look beyond the optics and support those people who are disrupting, because the last thing that we need is to carry on with business as usual.
Okay, well, that was fantastic. I didn't realize that it was a month old, but still very, very pertinent, certainly. Considering none of the ways that the Democrats or Biden's are going to claim to speak for racial minorities or racial minorities. Don't. Racial minorities or other, marginalized people while engaging in a genocidal mass murder campaign. That's still just as relevant as it was a month ago. Okay, Chad. I genuinely did not want to do this. But you've forced me. As you know, this has been the unspoken, well, it is spoken. This is the deal. When I get to 50 subs, I sing a little song. Maybe if it gets to the point where the community is bigger, I might have to up that. I might have to increase that goal. Once I start pulling Hassan numbers, which should be any week now. The best response I've heard of the "Oh, you just want Trump" is the Dearborn mayor, the jihad capital of America. When he was on CNN or something along the lines of, if Biden cares so much about the threat against democracy, why is he giving it completely to fascist Netanyahu? I mean, it's just no one is buying that shit anymore. No one is buying that shit. Okay, so here we go. I saw some people talking about Electric Light Orchestra, and there's not a lot of ELO songs that I think I know well enough that I could sing, because you need to choose songs that you know. Right? Like Evil Woman. I don't know how the verses to that go, but there is one song. There is one song that I do know. Okay? And this goes out to all the debate bro dipshits that try and come for me sometimes on this channel. All right? Thanks again, everyone, for the support. Here you go. These songs are deceptively hard sometimes. It's like I feel like I've sung that song many times, like in my car and other times, but when the pressure's on and I'm here trying to do it, it's like, man, these are tough. These are rough. I hope you people like this. I don't know. I haven't felt great about the last couple of them, all right? This is just me being honest with you. But I love those songs, Cinema Challenge. This is the problem. And then I go to sing them and it's like, oh boy. You have the voice of an angel. Thank you, thirsty housewife. You know, I may not have a lot in this life. When I feel like I have the support of thirsty housewife, I can kind of forget about some of that other stuff. When are you starting the band? Never. Okay? I have a fake band, okay, where I do everything. That's as far as that's gonna go. Melissa Etheridge, Come to My Window is a good one. Thank you, folks. Thanks for all the support, as always. I appreciate you. I appreciate you, chat. I hope you liked that. I don't know. I don't know what my favorite one was of all the karaoke things. I really enjoyed Margaritaville, Eye in the Sky, because Betty Davis Eyes, I can do the octave lower. I can do Betty Davis Eyes, the octave lower, and I feel way better about it. I guess I could have done that, but it's just not the same. Goodbye. Love you, Rob. It's not parasocial, as we've discussed. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, thank you again, everyone. Thanks for supporting this stream. It really means a lot.
Do they have those? I know, like, anyone to me, they'd be like, okay, you always...
Sean Vids. You missed Margaritaville? I did Margaritaville the day of Jimmy Buffett's death. I love that song. I'm sorry you missed that one, God's Own Drunk. And unfortunately, it was too good. It was too good of a performance, and it got muted for copyright. Normally with the karaoke, I'm able to get those through. The Margaritaville was too perfect of a performance, and the copyright algorithms got me on that one. So you had to be there for that one. It's gone forever now. Moral of the story is to sing worse. I can't do that though. Yeah, the King Charles moment of silence. That was a very funny moment. I ended up just making a separate version of it though that I put online with the music from Hereditary. Thanks again, folks. I really appreciate you. Give my regards to David Tovarish. I'll be back on Monday, all right? I'll be in the chat for the big game. Take care, folks.